Hello everybody and welcome to this complete Excel training course that has been designed to teach you the skills that employers crave. In this course, you'll start off with Excel fundamentals, then learn such things as relevant functions, work with time and date calculations, look at large data sets, learn how to build some pivot tables, and a whole bunch of other fun stuff, all of which have been put together in an easy to follow, laid back presentation style. Now, before we go any further, wanted to take a moment for some full disclosure. This course is a compilation of another Excel course, and I simply took all that material and put it into one comprehensive video so people don't have to jump through a massive playlist. There's a link to the playlist in the description in the event you only want to learn about certain topics. If you want to follow along, you can also download the class file using the link below. All right, well, let's go ahead and cue the course intro. Hope you enjoy it. Hello, everybody, and welcome. Let's get right into it and answer the toughest question of the day. What exactly is Excel? Well, granted, Excel is very broad and deep, and it can do all kinds of cool stuff, of which we'll show you later. But if you take Excel and you boil it down to its purest essence, Excel is nothing more than a big, fancy electronic calculator. While it's true you can do all kinds of cool, high-powered analytics, you can create charts, pivot tables, integrated AI, all that fancy stuff, but in the end, Excel is nothing more than a calculator. The most basic way to use Excel is the following. What you do is you enter content, and content means nothing more than text, numbers, or some combination of such. You do some calculations, you then save, spell check, and print, and you're out the door. And yes, granted, that is a gross oversimplification of what Excel can do, and we're only saying that simply to put your conscience at ease if you're brand new to Excel. Let's get into it. Go ahead and open Excel on your PC. Then, once Excel is open, in the upper left-hand corner, just go ahead and click Blank Workbook. Let's take a little bit of time and get familiar with the Excel environment. Whenever you open up an Excel file, it is technically referred to as a workbook. Some people call it a worksheet, and that's fine. Just know that workbook equals file equals spreadsheet. So why do they call it a workbook? Well, in the physical world, a book contains pages. And another word for pages is sheets, so workbooks contain sheets. So if we isolate ourselves on one sheet and examine the structure, you're going to notice it's displayed as a grid. And that grid contains rows and columns. Columns are identified with letters, rows are identified with numbers. The intersection of a row and a column is called a cell. Get it, Excel? Anyhow, the main question people ask is, how do you navigate around? Well, it's really done by using coordinates. For example, you want to go to the intersection of B10 or C15. However, that's a little too technical. Or if it helps, a popular analogy people use, and one I've used for decades, is you want to imagine yourself playing that game Battleship. If you are familiar with that game Battleship from when you were a kid, moving around in Excel is the exact same thing. In the end, the simplest way to get around Excel is simply to take your mouse, hover over the cell that you want, and then click it. The other way you can move around is to use your arrow keys up, down, left, right, and that'll get you through basic maneuvering in Excel. Moving on, let's talk about how to add some content into Excel. Believe it or not, adding content in Excel is almost the same as typing in text from other word processing applications, like Microsoft Word, Google Docs, or even typing an email. Put another way, if you already know how to type in text from, say, Microsoft Word, you already know how to do it here in Excel. You probably just aren't aware of it. Let's see how it's done by adding in some simple content. For this exercise, feel free to click in whatever cell you want and simply start typing. Type any word that comes to mind. And once you're done typing it, press your Enter key, and that's it. And just like every other Microsoft product out there, there is always several ways of doing the same thing. So if you don't like using the Enter key, you can type your text and then press any of your arrow keys up, down, left, right, and that'll suffice as well. Moving on, let's say while you're typing, you make a mistake. Whoops! You can remove the unwanted text by pressing the backspace key. Next, let's say you're typing along and you decide that you do not want that text there. As long as the text has not been entered, you can remove it by pressing your escape key. Moving on, let's say you have typed some text into a cell and you decide that you no longer want the text. Simply click the cell, press your delete key, and it's gone. There may be times when you don't want to delete the text, rather you want to edit the text or change it in some way. There are several ways we can do this. Method 1 is to hover over the cell and do a double click and that'll put you into an edit mode. The other method to edit the cell is to click on it and press your F2 key. No matter which method you choose, once you're in an edit mode, all you have to do is type the text to modify it as you wish, press your Enter key, and you're all set. The last thing we'll look at as far as working with text is good old-fashioned selecting. To select some cells, make sure your mouse looks like a fluffy plus sign, then simply click and drag. You can deselect your text by clicking somewhere else. Let's wind this section up by taking a moment to acknowledge the fact that there are a ton of ways to navigate in Excel, enter text, modify text, etc. The goal here was to show you the primary ways of entering and modifying text, and not to overload you. You can learn them as you go along. Moving on, we've worked really hard and we obviously don't want to lose any of the work that we've done, so let's save this file. If you save files in other Microsoft applications, it's done the exact same way here in Excel. By chance you have not saved files, you have a couple options. One way is to click on the Save icon in the upper left-hand corner, then at the prompt, give your file a name and click Save. The other is to click File, Save, choose the location you want to store it in, give the file a name, click Save, and you're all set. By default, new workbooks have only one sheet. If you want to add new sheets, you can click the plus sign down here in the lower left-hand corner. You can rename a sheet by either A, double-clicking on it and typing the name that you want, or you can right-click and choose Rename. By chance you're feeling artistic, you can change the color of a sheet by right-clicking, choosing Tab Color, and then picking the color that you like. As more sheets are added, you can maneuver through your workbook in several ways. The simplest and most direct is to click on the sheet that you want. Other ways to maneuver around include right-clicking on the set of arrows you see down here. Excel will then present a list of sheets that you can go to. Simply click the one you want and choose OK. Other methods to maneuver through your workbook include using the Control Page Up and Control Page Down keys. Control Page Down will take you to the right. Control Page Up will take you to the left. If your file contains a lot of sheets, you can slide through your workbook by left-clicking on the arrows down here on the left-hand side. You can rearrange your sheets by doing a left-click and drag to move the sheet to where you want it. And finally, if you want to delete a sheet, you can right-click on a sheet and choose Delete. In this module, we'll take a look at how to do some very basic calculations in Excel. Now, a lot of people tend to skip this lesson because they view it as too superficial, and admittedly, it's kind of boring. Yet, it's incredibly important to your understanding of Excel. Let's get into it. Let's relapse back into grade school and look at how to do the 4 fundamental calculations of addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. For starters, here are the keystrokes that you want to use for each calculation. You can do addition by using the plus sign, subtraction by using the minus sign, multiplication is done using the asterisk, division is done using the /, and if you're doing any work with exponents, you want to use the caret symbol. Now it's just a matter of typing out our formulas. Let's start with addition. To add these numbers up, we click the cell where we want the formula to live, type an equal sign, click on our first cell, type a plus sign, click our second cell, press Enter, and we're all done. If we wanted to subtract some numbers, we would type our equal sign, click our first cell, type a minus sign, click our second cell, press Enter. If we wanted to multiply some numbers together, we would type an equal sign, click our first cell, type an asterisk, click our second cell, press Enter, and we're all done. If we want to divide something, we click our target cell, type an equal sign, click on our first number, press our /, click our second number, press Enter, and we're all done. Okay, not so bad, pretty easy. Now let's up the ante a little bit. Let's revisit our grade school math and talk about one of the fundamental pillars of Excel. And that is, whenever Excel does any type of calculation, it will always play by the mathematical rules of operations. So if you don't recall the mathematical rules of operations, here they are. The way Excel works is it will do what's in parentheses first, then do any exponents, then multiply, divide, add, and subtract. Some of you may have been taught the mnemonic of "Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally," or some of you may have learned the acronym of PEMDAS. No matter which way you learned, just remember that Excel will always do calculations in a specific order. In case you need a refresher or care to practice, we encourage you to take some time and play around. Over here, we set up a sandbox with some random numbers. Pause the video and build some random formulas like you see being done over here. The goal is just to toy around, build some various formulas just to see what you get, and make sure to use some parentheses as well so you can see how your formulas give different results. So feel free to have a go, and we'll see you in a few minutes. Okay, and now is as good a time as any to mention something called the formula bar. What exactly is the formula bar? Well, the formula bar is located up here in the upper left-hand corner, and the key thing to know is that with the formula bar is it will always show you the true content of any cell. And as some people have said, it's always a good idea to trust the formula bar. Why? Because you may see a number on your screen, but it may be the result of a formula. So if you ever want to see what's really going on, click the cell, look in the formula bar, and that'll tell you the story. If you've been following along, we've taken some time to play with the order of operations. Let's take a moment to build a more functional example by applying what we've learned. Here we have a very basic balance sheet, and what we want to do is add up the numbers. In the previous lesson, we showed you how to do addition by typing out an equal sign, then clicking on your target cell, type a plus sign, repeat the pattern until you're done. The same principle applies here. So if you wish, you can pause the video and practice building the formulas. And yes, Excel does offer a bunch of ways to do addition that really negates what we're doing here. By chance you're not into this, and frankly I can't blame you, feel free to skip ahead to the next section where we talk about financial ratios. In this section, we'll learn how to build common business formulas as well as financial ratios. These formulas will rely on the concepts of math and the order of operations that we learned earlier. The reason we do this is because sometimes Excel does not have a built-in function that we can use, and instead we have to build the formula manually. Let's start things off with the accounting equation. This is a fundamental equation as it sets the basis for the company's balance sheet. The formula shows the relationship between a company's assets and the sum of its liabilities and its equity. When it's all said and done, both sides must be equal. Let's see an example. Here we have the formula that reads assets equal liabilities plus equity. Here is our equity amount. Here is our liability amount. And here are the assets. To solve this, we'll add our equity to our liability and compare it to our assets. So when we add these two numbers up, we get 250K. Compare that to our assets of 250K, and it looks like we're all set. Next is net income, also known as profit, or the bottom line. Simply put, are you making money? Yes or no? If the results of the formula are positive, that's good. If they're negative, you might have some trouble. Net income is calculated by subtracting your revenue from your expenses. Let's see a quick example. Here we have our revenue amount, our expenses, and to figure out the net income, we can type an equal sign, click on the revenue amount, type a minus sign, click our expense amount, press enter, and it looks like we're in good shape. Next is the current ratio. In short, the general idea of the current ratio is it shows the financial health of the company. The ratio will give you a measure of the company's ability to meet its short-term debts. Anything between 1.5 and 2 is considered to be a good current ratio. The current ratio is calculated by dividing the current assets by the current liabilities. Let's see a quick example. Here we have our current assets, our current liabilities, and to do the calculation, we'll type an equal sign, click on our current assets, and divide that by our current liabilities. Press enter, and it looks like we're in good shape. Moving on, let's talk about the quick ratio, otherwise known as the acid test. This ratio measures the ability to pay debts, but it uses assets that are quickly converted into liquidity. This includes things like stocks, accounts receivable, cash, etc. A good quick ratio is considered to be anything above 1. The ratio is calculated by dividing the liquid assets by the current liabilities. Let's see a quick example. Here we have our liquid assets and our current liabilities. To figure this out, we can click on our target cell, type an equal sign, then click on our liquid assets, divide that by our current liabilities, press enter, and it looks like we're in good shape. Moving on, let's look at cost of goods sold. The cost of goods sold show you how much you're spending to produce your product or service. The idea, obviously, is to keep your costs low. The way it's calculated is you take your beginning inventory, add that to any purchased inventory, and then subtract out any ending inventory. Let's see a quick example. Here we have our inventory amounts. So to build the formula, we'll type an equal sign, take our beginning inventory, add that to our purchased inventory, and then subtract out our ending inventory. And there is our cost of goods sold. Next, we'll talk about gross profit. Simply put, gross profit is the amount of revenue you have left over after you subtract out the cost of production. You can calculate gross profit by subtracting your sales from the cost of goods sold. Let's see a simple example. Here we have our sales amount and the cost of goods sold. To figure this out, we can click on our target cell, type an equal sign, click on our sales amount, type a minus sign, click on the cost of goods sold, press the Enter key, so it appears our gross profit is $120K. Not too shabby. Moving on, let's look at gross profit margin. Simply stated, the gross profit margin tells you what the business made after paying its cost of doing business. The calculation is a little funky, but it's nothing we can't handle. The formula is you take your net sales minus your cost of goods, you take that result, divide that by your net sales, and multiply it by 100. The result will be a percentage that shows you the gross profit margin. Let's take a look at our numbers and build the formula. Here we have our cost of goods sold and our net sales, and let's do the formula. We'll start off with an equal sign, then do an open parentheses, click on our net sales, subtract out our cost of goods sold, close those parentheses, then we'll divide that by our net sales, and then multiply the results by 100. And it looks like our profit margin is 52%. Not too bad. Moving on, let's look at the net profit margin. In very general terms, the net profit margin shows you how much each dollar collected has translated into profit. Put another way, it shows the ability to turn income into profit. The net profit margin is calculated by dividing net income by the revenue and then multiplying the results by 100. So in this example, our net income is $500,000, the revenue is $250,000, and we can figure this out by typing an equal sign, do an open parentheses, and then take our net income, divide that by our revenue, close that parentheses, multiply it by 100, and it looks like our net profit margin is 200%. Yeah, we'll take that all day long. Next, let's take a look at break-even. The break-even will show you the amount of sales you need to reach to make a profit. Or, phrased differently, how much do you need to sell to make a profit? The calculation is done by taking your fixed cost and dividing that by the difference between your sales per unit and your variable cost per unit. Let's see an example to clarify that. In this example, our fixed costs are $4,500, our variable cost per unit is $1, and our price per unit is $250. Let's figure out our break-even. We'll start off by typing an equal sign, then we'll click our fixed cost, press our divide symbol, do an open parentheses, and then we'll subtract out our sales per unit minus our variable cost per unit, close those parentheses, and it looks like we have to sell 3,000 units just to break even. Moving on, let's take a look at return on investment, or the ROI. In very simple terms, the ROI shows you if the money you're putting into your business is returning to you as revenue. The higher the percentage, the better the investment. The ROI is figured out by first taking the difference between the investment gain and the cost of investment, and then divide that by the cost of investment and multiply the results by 100. So let's say we paid out $10,000 in advertising, we got back $25,000 in revenue, and we want to see our return on investment. We can figure out the return on investment by typing an equal sign, then do an open parentheses, click on the gain, and we'll subtract out our costs, close the parentheses, and divide that by the cost, multiply that by 100, and it looks like our return on investment is 150%. Not too bad. So let's take a look at the customer acquisition cost, or CAC. The customer acquisition cost is how much you have to spend to get a new customer. It's important because it shows how effective your marketing campaigns are. By way of example, here's the cost of our marketing efforts, and here's the number of customers we acquired. To get the acquisition cost, we have to add up our marketing expenses and then divide that by the customers acquired. To solve this, we'll type an equal sign, then do an open parentheses, add up all of our expenses, close the parentheses, divide that by the customers acquired, press enter, and it looks like every new customer cost us $25.20. Okay, it is time to wrap this lesson up. So in closing, yes, I completely agree. When it comes to financial modeling or financial accounting, there is a whole field of study and a whole school of thought that you can delve into. The objective of this lesson was twofold. One, to give you a real quick overview of financial ratios. Second, and far more important, to demonstrate how much can be done just by using grade school math along with the order of operations. Put another way, you can accomplish a lot just by using basic math. Hope you've enjoyed this lesson, and I'll see you in the next one. Okay, let's take some time and look at some miscellaneous topics, just because they can kind of fit anywhere. No rhyme or reason, just is. Let's start off by looking at the find feature. If you're ever searching for something and you have no idea where it is, you can use the find feature. It's very easy to use and very straightforward. Let's say in this case, we're looking for a particular country. For example, let's say Japan. What we can do is from our Home tab, go up and click where it says Find and choose Find again. This little dialog box will pop up. And now if you happen to be familiar with it from Word, all you have to do is type in the word you're looking for. In this case, we'll type in the country of Japan. And then if we want to do more options, we can click that. And then the interesting part is right here where it says Within. We can choose to search within the sheet or the workbook itself. In this case, we'll leave it simple. We click on Find Next, and right there it is. That's how easy the find is. Moving on, let's take a look at the Fill series. The Fill series will allow you to replicate or repeat patterns when Excel detects it. There are two primary ways you can use it. One is with formulas. The other one is with some supplied text, and we'll see that here in a couple seconds to clarify it. Arguably, the most common usage of the Fill series will be when you want to duplicate your formulas. So for instance, if we do some addition here, and we need to replicate that formula, we can get our fill handle, drag down, and our legwork is done. The other way to use the Fill series is you can leverage Excel when it detects a pattern. For example, here we have a month. What we can do is use the Fill series, drag down, and it will fill in our months for us. We can do the same thing with dates. If we provide Excel a date, drag down, it'll fill in our dates for us. Last is creating a number sequence. Now this can be a little confusing, but it's not that bad. You'll notice that when we drag down the numbers, Excel wants to repeat it. But we can fix that by clicking right here and then choosing Fill Series, and then Excel will count out our values for us. And right there's your Fill Series. Next, let's take a look at Paste Special. Think of the Paste Special as being a twist on a paste. The Paste Special gives you different options that you can play with. The reason you might want to use a Paste Special is because sometimes a standard copy and paste just will not cut it. Let's see an example. Let's say we have these totals here, and what we want to do is use the results of these formulas somewhere else. The problem is if we do a copy and then a paste, we get a bunch of zeros because Excel is copying down the formulas when in reality, we don't want that. In this case, we want just the numbers. What we can do is use a Paste Special to get us our numbers. The way it works is this. We'll select our cells, then copy them, then go up and click where it says Paste, Paste Special. Then we want to look for where it says Paste Values. Click that, choose OK. Now Excel has pasted the results of those formulas, so it's just a standard number. From this point, we can do as we wish with those numbers, and that'll do it for the Paste Special. Next up is Excel's Go-To feature. And in case you haven't figured it out, it will allow you to go to wherever you wish. There are two ways you can use this. First is by going to a particular cell, which is pretty easy. And the second is a little more practical. We'll start off by looking at the standard go-to command, which is we could either A, click up here and choose go to, or press the F5 key. Either one will work. And by standard go to, we mean you could click right here where it says reference and then type in the cell that you want to go to. That said, the more practical way people use it is to click on the special button. And then the two most common choices people use is to either go to the formulas or go to the blanks. In this case, let's see the formulas. We'll click the button right here and choose OK. And now Excel will show us where our formulas are. Conversely, if we would have any blank cells in our range, Excel will highlight them as well. Next, we'll take a look at data validation. Data validation allows you to control what people enter into a cell. And in this section, we'll take a look at the two most common ways people use it. First, by creating a drop-down list, and second, by controlling the numbers that get entered into a cell. So before we start, please recognize this list was typed prior to recording a session just to make the demonstration easier. So if we want to create a drop-down list, what we can do is click right here then go up and click on Data, Data Validation, and then where it says Settings, if we click the drop-down list, we can see the choices we can work with. In this case, we'll go with List. We'll click down here where it says Source, and we will select our list. Now, normally, we can click OK if we wanted to, but in this instance, let's go over to where it says Error Alert. What we can do with the error alert is put in a custom message just in the event that somebody tries to break our rules. So in this case, let's say they try to type in a country that does not exist on our list. What we can do is click right here where it says title and type out the title to the message. Then we can type our error message and we can make that be whatever we want. In this case, let's have some fun with it. Click OK, and then we can drag our list down. From here, if we click on a cell, you can see the list appear. We can make our choice accordingly. By chance, we type a country that does not exist. You'll see that Excel will get very angry and come back and yell at us. For the second example, let's say we want to enter our price amounts, and we know that everything that we charge is anything between $5 and $100. So what we can do is select our range, then choose Data Validation, where it says Settings, click the drop arrow, and choose Decimal. And here we can set everything to be between our minimum and maximum price. Click OK. And now the only numbers that Excel will enter is between that price range. Nothing lower, nothing higher. And to wrap this segment up, sometimes you want to remove all the data validation, and that can be a little tricky. The way we can do that is to leverage something that we learned a little bit earlier, which is that Go To feature. So if we go up here and click on Go To Special, we'll see an option for data validation. If we choose that, that will highlight all the cells that have data validation in it. We can then go up and click on data validation, choose clear all, click OK, and our data validation has been removed, and that'll do it for this segment. We'll see you in the next one. Okay, it is time to move on to the heart of Excel and learn about functions. So what exactly are functions? Whenever you hear the term function, you want to think equation, formula, calculation, or doing math to some type of degree. Functions are ready-made, built-in formulas that have been designed to be fill-in-the-blanks. And functions basically break down to three parts. The first part is an equal sign. The second part is the name of the calculation that you want to do. And the third part is telling Excel what cells to do the calculation on. If you think back to your old grade school days, the first calculation they taught you how to do was how to add numbers up. And that's where we'll start with Excel, good old-fashioned addition. Whenever you add numbers up, you use the sum function. In this lesson, we'll look at the various ways to do addition, and you can pick and choose the ones you like the best. In this example, we want to add up our expenses. We can do that by clicking on a blank cell, then type out equal, sum, open parentheses, and then we'll click and drag over the numbers that we want to add up, press our Enter key, and we're all done. Here's another way to do addition. If you look up here in the upper left-hand corner, there's this FX icon. This FX icon is referred to as the insert function icon. However, it's easier if you think about it as being the home of the functions. So to use this method, we could click on the FX icon, then do a search for our calculation, which is the sum. We'll see it from the list here, so we can just click on OK. And then with this prompt, all we have to do is simply give Excel the numbers. We can do that by doing a click and drag, press Enter, and now we've done the sum in a different way. A third way to do addition is to use the auto sum, which is located up here in the upper right-hand corner. To use the auto sum, simply click it, spot check your range. If that looks good, press your Enter key, and you're all done. A fourth way to do addition is to double click on the auto sum. Just click where you want the formula to live, do a double click on the auto sum, and you're all done. A fifth way to do addition is to use the keyboard shortcut Alt equal. So just click where you want the formula to be, Alt equal, press Enter, all done. We've been doing addition for a few moments, so let's take a break and introduce a new concept called the autofill. The autofill is very flexible and there's a lot you can do with it. In this case, we'll isolate ourselves and see how the autofill can benefit us when working with formulas. So if you study this example, you'll notice that we have to do addition over and over and over again. We can leverage the autofill and have it do the heavy lifting for us. Here's how it works. Let's use the AutoSum to add these numbers up horizontally. Once that's completed, we'll click the cell that contains the formula. Then let our mouse rest on the lower right-hand corner of the active cell. The mouse will convert itself into a little black plus sign. With that black plus sign, simply click and drag down. And voila, Excel has duplicated our formulas. Just in case you haven't had enough, let's wrap up this lesson with even more ways of doing addition. Here's one you might like. You can select your cells ahead of time, and then when you're ready, click on your AutoSum. Alternatively, you can select your cells ahead of time, then press Alt equal. But wait, there's more. Here's a cool gimmick you can do. If you hold your Control key down, you can select non-contiguous ranges. Once you're done selecting, click on your AutoSum, and there you go. Okay, this is getting a little out of hand. How about we draw the line here and move on to something else? Okay, let's look at the average function. The average function will give you the middle or central point of a range of numbers. It's very easy to use, and we'll look at two ways of doing it. Here we have our total expenses, and we want to figure out the average of these numbers. Method 1 of doing this is to type equal, average, open parentheses, select our numbers, press enter, and we're all done. Method 2 is to click the FX icon, do a search for the average if need be, find it, then click OK, and then all we have to do is just feed Excel the numbers, and we'll do that by way of click and drag. We'll click OK, and there we go. And that's about as complicated as it gets. In this lesson, we'll take a look at how to find the highest and lowest values in a range of cells, otherwise known as the min and max, and odds are you can pretty much figure out which one's which. The max is for the highest number, the min is for the lowest number. We'll start off by doing the max. Let's type an equal sign, max, open parentheses, select our numbers, press enter, and there you go. Let's follow that up by doing the min. So we'll type equal, min, open parentheses, select our range of numbers, press enter, and there you go, easy peasy. Now, let's take a look at the count function. The count function is very direct. What it will do is literally count the numbers in the range that we select. In this case, let's say we want the total count of our expenses. To do the function, we can type equal, count, open parentheses, select our range, press enter, and there's the count. Closely related to the count function is the COUNTA function. What the COUNTA function will do is technically count any cells that contain numbers and text, although you can make a case it's more often used just to count cells that contain text only. Let's take a look at a goofy example just to prove it. Let's do a quick test drive of the COUNTA function, then we'll do a practical example. Let's just say for whatever reason, the boss wants a count of our expenses and the numbers associated with them. Okay, boss, makes no sense, but here's how you do it. Type equal, COUNTA, do an open parentheses, select the cells in question, press your enter key, and there you go. A more practical case would be just to count the text only, and we can do that by using the COUNTA function. We'll type equal, COUNTA, do an open parentheses, select our text, press enter, and there we go. Much better. Next up, let's take a look at the absolute reference. The absolute reference is when you want to take a cell value and make it constant in a calculation. Another way to think about it is you're going to lock a cell in place, or you're going to drop anchor on it so it won't move. By way of example, here we have some totals, and we have to figure out how much tax we have to pay for each total. The tax rate is located up here, and it's 5%. On the surface, this seems like a very simple calculation, yet it might lead to some frustration. Let's find out. We'll type an equal sign, click on our number, multiply that by our tax rate of 5%. After we press our enter key, it looks like things are going to cooperate. However, when we get the autofill and drag down, all of a sudden we've got a little bit of a problem. Uh-oh, not good. The problem is we failed to lock in our 5% and we did not make it constant. Let's delete this and try it again. This time when we build our formula, we'll make sure to lock the 5% in place, and it's very easy to do. It just requires one additional keystroke. Here we go. We'll type equal, click on our number, multiply that by our 5%, and this time after we click on the 5%, we'll press our F4 key. When we press the F4 key, we'll see a couple dollar signs pop up. All those dollar signs mean is that cell is locked in place. It's not going to move, it's going to stay constant. From there, we can press the enter key, jump back up, get our autofill, drag down, and look at that. It's working. Nice. Now, if our tax rates change, our formula will adapt. And there is your absolute reference. Okay, in this lesson, we'll take a look at names, otherwise known as named ranges. So what is a named range? A named range is a way for you to put a label or a name tag on a cell or chunk of cells. You can then use that label in a formula or a function. Think of it as a substitution. It's a way for you to use real words in a calculation instead of cell references. Let's clarify things by way of example. If we wanted to, we could put a label on our first half expenses. Here's the way we do it. First, we select the cells that we want to use. Then we'll cruise up into the upper left-hand corner and we'll see this thing called the name box. We'll click up there and then we'll type our name. The key here is to realize two things. Name ranges cannot contain spaces and name ranges must be unique. And also make sure you press the Enter key after you're done typing your label. We'll call these cells first half total, press the Enter key, and we are good to go. From here, we can use that name range in a formula. For example, we can jump over here and figure out our average using the name range. So we'll type out equal, average, open parentheses, type in our name range. When Excel recognizes the name range, it'll let us know. Then we can press our Enter key and check that out. Not too bad. Moving on, if we want to edit the name range, we can cruise up and click on our Formulas tab, then look for where it says Name Manager. From there, a dialog box will open up and we can edit and delete accordingly. Just a word of caution though, if you delete a name range, Excel might get a little upset, so just be careful about that one. And let's conclude this lesson with a little bonus. Excel gives you the option of creating names in bulk. By way of example, we can select our cells up here, making sure to include the row labels. Then, from the Formulas tab, click Create from Selection, Accept the Defaults, and check it out. Instant name ranges. Not too bad. We'll take that one. Okay, that'll do it for name ranges, and we'll see you in the next lesson. Okay, in this module, we'll take a little bit of time and study formatting. What exactly is formatting? Well, it's really just cosmetic effects. You're simply going to change the appearance of your cells. By chance, if you're familiar with changing fonts from other applications, say Word or Google Docs or something along those lines, changing fonts is pretty much the exact same thing here in Excel with one major distinction, of which we'll cover later. Right now, let's just jump right in. Let's start by changing the appearance of our fonts. The way we can do that is we can select our text, and then we can go up and click on the drop arrow, and we'll see a whole list of fonts. We can pick and choose the ones we want. If we want to change the font size, we can go right next door and click the drop arrow and choose a number. Larger the number, larger the font, so we can make our choice there. Some good old standbys, which is bold, italic, underline. Those are toggles, so we can make our font bold, italic, or underline, as we said, simply by clicking on them. If we want to change the font color, we can click the drop arrow right here and select the color that we want. If we want to change the cell color, we can click the drop arrow where the paint bucket is and select the color we want to apply. Moving on, if we want to apply a border to our cells, we can select the ones we want, then go up and click on this drop arrow here, choose the border type we want to apply. Next, if we want to change the alignment of our cells, we can use these icons right here and change the position of our text within the cell. Changing gears, if we take a moment and select our numbers, we can change the display by clicking on the $ right here, or click the drop arrow and choose the currency style we wish to apply. If we want to show our numbers separated by commas, we can select our numbers, then go up here and click on the comma icon. If we want to display more or less decimals, we can click the icons right here. So far, so good, nothing too complicated. Let's take a second and talk about this percentage icon, since this is the one that might trip people up. The way the percentage icon works is it will multiply any number by 100, then show the number as a percentage. So if you ever use this in real life, make sure the number that you're using is displayed in decimals first. So here we see our number, it's a decimal, we can click the percent icon, and look at that, we're all set. Moving on, we have the option to resize our columns if we wish. Sometimes our text will not fit properly, so we can resize it doing a click and drag. Just make sure that when you go to resize the column, your mouse is a double-headed arrow. Then you can click and drag. The other one you're going to encounter is sometimes a cell will have a bunch of pound signs in it, so you can resize the column to see the numbers. Moving on, just like we can resize a column, we can also resize our rows. If we let our mouse rest over here, we can click and drag to resize the row height if we wish. If you need to add a column or a row to your spreadsheet, you can do that in several ways. The most direct method is you can go up here to the column heading, do a right click and choose Insert. Or on the Home tab, you'll see the Insert icon. You can click that drop arrow and choose Insert Sheet Columns. If we want to add a row, we can right click and choose Insert. Or we can select our row first, then click Insert, Insert Sheet Rows. The choice is yours. Now, let's go one level deeper and talk about how Excel stores data. It all boils down to two simple things. Data is either stored as text or numbers. By default, if Excel recognizes your data as text, it will store it on the left side of the cell. Conversely, if Excel recognizes your data as numbers, it will store it on the right side of the cell. Here's how that could impact us. Sometimes we're working with numbers and we don't want them stored as numbers because we're not going to be doing any calculations on them. Rather, we want them stored as text. An example could be some of the postal codes in the United States begin with zeros, or you may be working with invoice numbers that begin with a leading zero. To illustrate this, let's say we have an invoice number that leads off with 3 zeros. If we try to type in 3 zeros right off the bat, and then follow that with some numbers, when we press Enter, you notice the leading zeros disappear. There's a couple ways to solve this, yet the most direct is to change the format type from general to text. We can do that by going up here, clicking on the drop arrow, choosing text. Now, when we type out our leading zeros and press Enter, everything's all good. The other way we can accomplish this is to type an apostrophe first, then our numbers with the leading zeros. Okay, so let's talk about custom formatting. Custom formatting really gives you the ability to control the way your content is displayed in the cell. When you first see custom formatting, it may seem a little intimidating, but once you know the pattern, it's really not that bad. The pattern is Excel will format anything with a positive value first, then a negative value, then 0 values, and finally text. And the other critical piece of information is each format is separated by semicolons. Let's clarify this by way of example. Let's say we have our numbers here. We have a positive value, a negative value, a 0 value, and a text value. And for whatever reason, we decided that we want the positive values in green, the negative in red, our zeros to appear in magenta, and our text to appear in blue. That sounds lovely. Can hardly wait. Now, the part that's no fun is whenever you want to apply custom formatting, you have to type it out manually. And the other thing to bear in mind is to recognize there is a whole universe of custom formats that you can apply. The goal here is just to give you a taste of how it works. To create our custom format, let's first select our numbers. Then we'll go up here where it says number and click the arrow. Next, click custom, and here comes the fun part. If we want our positive values, we type this. Our negative values will appear like this. Our 0 values will appear this way. And lastly, our text. Click OK, and there we go. All right, admittedly very goofy, very impractical, yet the goal here is just to let you know how custom formatting works. Now, let's take a look at a more practical application. Here we have some numbers, and let's say we don't want to display all these zeros, rather in an abbreviated manner. We can do that by creating a custom format that goes like this. First, we can select our numbers. Then we can launch the number dialog box, go down to where it says custom, and we can type the following: 0, comma, comma, open quote, the letter M, close quote, click OK. And there we go. Check it out. Custom format applied. Another custom format that we can create piggybacks off a previous example. You might recall the percentage icon from earlier. What it will do is multiply the cell content by 100 and then display that result in a percentage. So by chance we are working with a whole number and want it to be displayed as a percent, here's how we can do it. We can launch the formatting dialog box, click down where it says custom, and then type the following: 0 \% symbol, and apply that, and now our number is displayed as a percentage. So before we move on and talk about some of the nuances with formatting, at this point it makes sense to reiterate just how deep custom formatting is. You can spend hours with this stuff. And clearly we don't have the time to cover everything. Rather, the goal was just to get you familiar with how this stuff works. Next, let's talk about the format painter. What exactly is the format painter? It's best understood by way of example. Let's say you applied some formatting, really like it, and you want to apply it somewhere else in your spreadsheet. With the format painter, think paint bucket and paintbrush. To use it, you first want to click on the cell with the formatting that you just created. Think of that as your paint bucket. Then go up and click on the format painter icon, and then all you have to do is just paint or select over different fonts, and then the formatting that you created will be applied. The only downside with the format painter is it's sort of one and done. Meaning once you click and drag over some fonts to apply the new format, it's going to deactivate and go back to regular mode. There's a workaround though. What you can do is double click on the format painter, and what that'll do is keep it active for as long as you want. And then once you're done, press your escape key and you're right back to regular mode. Moving on, sometimes you have data in Excel and you simply don't want others to see it. There's a formatting trick you can do that goes like this. You can select the cells and then go up here and click on the number format dialog box, go down to where it says custom, then right here, type 3 semicolons, and what that will do is hide your data. So that's a cool one you can break out if need be. Okay, so when this module first started, we mentioned that formatting cells in Excel is very much similar to changing fonts in other word processing applications, with one major distinction. And now let's talk about it. The key thing you want to realize with Excel formatting is that formatting is a mask. It will change the display of a cell. But before we delve too far into that concept, let's talk about how to remove cell formatting. If you ever want to clear cell formats, what you want to do is select your cells first. Then from the Home tab, choose Clear Formats. And once those formats are cleared, Excel will show you the true content of the cell. Where most people struggle with this is they may want to delete the content of a cell entirely, so what they'll do is they'll press the Delete key. In their minds, they think everything has been deleted. The problem is when they start typing, that original format comes back to haunt them. The reason this is happening is that when you press your Delete key, the delete key will remove the cell content, but the format will remain. I know, it's kind of goofy. The big takeaway is this. If you want to delete the cell content, but leave the format, simply press your delete key. If you want to remove the format and leave the content, select your cells, then choose Clear Format. And the last thing we'll cover with formatting is if you want to clear the cell in its entirety, choose Clear All. When you choose Clear All, Excel will remove the cell content and the cell format. Okay, let's talk about conditional formatting. What exactly is conditional formatting? It's a special type of formatting that is used to identify cells that meet a certain set of circumstances. And the most important part is the cell will change its appearance based off that condition. Conditional formatting is very easy to use and pretty much very straightforward. The only real nuance is that it can get pretty deep. There's a lot more than meets the eye. Let's take a look. Here we have our sales data, and let's say we want to draw attention to some cells that meet a certain set of circumstances. So let's start by selecting our list, and then go up here on the Home tab, and click where it says Conditional Formatting, and you can see some of our choices. Let's go right here to where it says Highlight Cell Rules, and as mentioned, if we read these, it's very easy to figure out what they're going to do. And in our case, let's say we want to see all the sales that are greater than $1 million. So off this list, we can choose greater than. This dialog box will pop up. And then from here, we can make a couple choices. We could either change the value that we're looking for, or we could go over here and click on the drop arrow and choose a particular color that we want to see. In this case, we'll go with this one. Click OK. And there you have it. It's just that simple. Moving on. Another popular choice is to find duplicates. And the way we can do that is to go up here and click on where it says Conditional Formatting. Go down to where it says Highlight Cell Rules. And down at the bottom of the list, we'll see where it says Duplicate Values. We can click that, make our choices if need be based off this dialog box. In this case, I'll accept the defaults. Click OK. And right there are our duplicate values. Again, just that easy. Moving on, let's take a look at the top-bottom rules. What we can do is off this selection here, you notice that we have a couple choices. We can choose top 10 items, top 10%, etc. We can choose ones that are below or above average. In this case, let's choose the top 10 items. Again, we can change the dialog box if need be. In this case, I'll leave it as is. Click OK. And right there are our top 10 items. Moving on, just know for this next demonstration, what we did is put an average formula right here that shows us the average of all of our sales numbers. And we're going to use this number for comparison purposes when we apply our conditional formatting. So with our numbers selected, we'll go up here and click where it says Conditional Formatting, Top Bottom Rules, choose Above Average. We'll change the formatting here just for fun. And now you can see the ones above average. Moving on, let's take a look at color scales and how to apply them. When we go up here and select our range and go up to where it says Conditional Formatting Color Scales, as we hover over these icons, you'll notice that Excel will apply a specific color to a specific cell. Now, most people use these to create heat maps, but a bigger question is, why does Excel assign the colors that it does? Why is one cell red? Why is one cell yellow? Why is one cell green? Well, the answer is Excel looks at your range of numbers, breaks them into thirds, and then assigns them a particular color. In this case, the top third is green, the middle third is yellow, and the bottom third is red. And that's a key point to keep in mind as we go forward. The key point being how Excel will look at a range of numbers and then break it into particular segments, say every third, and then assign a color based off where that cell's value falls within that segment. You can modify where these breakpoints occur by selecting color scales, more rules, and right here where it says format style, you can choose to make it a 2 or 3 color scale. Where it says minimum, you can make your choice off this list. Where it says maximum, you can do the same. You could also change the colors that are being used. And yes, there's a lot you can do, so guess what? Homework assignment for you. Moving on, let's take a look at these icon sets. As you can see, if we hover over these icon sets, Excel will put a little icon within the cell itself. And as a quick reminder, remember, it's based off that premise that Excel will look at your range of numbers and break it into thirds and assign the appropriate icon given the cell's value. Next, let's take a quick look at these data bars. These data bars will show a little mini chart or gauge within the cell. That's kind of cool, so feel free to play around with that one. You also have the option to create your own rule by choosing Conditional Formatting, New Rule. And the way it works is this top portion gives you a list of choices that you can choose from. And then, based off the selection you make in the top portion, the bottom portion allows you to modify the specifics of the rule. And again, a lot you can do here, so guess what? Even more homework for you. And let's wrap up this module by taking a look at a popular request, which is how do you apply conditional formatting to an entire row of data? And for that, let's take a look at a quick example. Here we have our sales, and let's say we want to highlight a row that meets a particular target cell of $5 million. But another way, if the total sales are over $5 million, we want to highlight the entire row. So we start off by selecting our cells, and then you want to pay particular attention to this top value right here, since we're going to be using it in the formula that we're going to build here in a few moments. So after our range is selected, go up and click where it says Conditional Formatting, New Rule, and then at the bottom here, you want to click where it says Use a Formula. Then click in this formula area, and then do the following. Type in equal, then go click on that top cell, which is cell S38. And then after you click on the cell, what you want to do is remove the $ in front of the number 38. Because in short, what it will do is lock column S, but then allow the formatting to be applied to the rows. After that $ is removed, type a greater than symbol, then click on our target value of $5 million, which is here. Click Format, choose the color of your liking, click OK, and there you go. Voila, instant row formatting. And that'll wrap up this module on conditional formatting. Okay, let's take a look at everyone's favorite, the if function. So what exactly is the if function? Simply put, it's a question, and that question has two possible answers, yes or no. Depending on the answer to the question, dictates what happens. As a side note, sometimes people will define the if statement as being a logical test. If you ever hear the phrase logical test, it's just an elaborate way of saying you're going to ask a question. That's all. There's no need for unnecessary complexity. The if statement is nothing more than a question, and that question has two answers. Is it yes? Is it no? That's it. The key to reading an if statement is to recognize the pattern, and that pattern is always the same. It's always written, question comes first, what happens if it's yes, what happens if it's no, and a comma indicates a break in thought. By way of example, here we have a list of our employees, and we want to know if they passed a mandatory safety exam. If they want to pass the exam, they have to get a 70 or higher. Put another way, if their score is 70 or higher, they pass. If it's lower than 70, they fail. Let's build the if statement. We'll go up and click on the FX icon. We'll do a search for if. We'll then click OK. The first part is a logical test. Remember, a logical test is a question. So the question is, did the first person pass the exam? So we'll click on the exam score, type a greater than symbol, equal 70. Where it says value of true, that just means what happens if the answer is yes. In this case, they pass. Where it says value of false, that just means what happens if the answer is no. In this case, they fail. Go ahead and click OK. So far, so good. Let's drag our formula down, and it looks like we're good to go. Just for fun, let's change a couple scores just to see if it works. Let's wrap this up with a quick review. Remember, if statements always follow the same pattern. It's question comes first, what happens if it's yes, what happens if it's no. Moving on, let's talk about the if and if or condition. You may ask, why would you even use this in the first place? Well, simply put, you're going to ask more than one question. Furthermore, to make sense of everything, we have to first take a moment and study the and or condition. Let's start off with the and condition. Whenever you work with an and condition, you want to be aware that and conditions can be defined as I want everything or nothing at all. By contrast, or conditions give you more options. Now granted, that can be a little confusing, so let's see an example. Let's say yours truly hits the lottery and has enough money to buy a really expensive sports car. And that sports car has to have the following: a 5.2-liter V10 engine, fully loaded with every accessory we can think of, and it must be in black. So if you see what we're looking for, the car has to meet all those conditions. That is an and condition. It's everything or nothing at all. If we flip it around, let's say I go to the dealership and they say, well, we can give you everything you want, but the car is only available in gray, blue, yellow, or red. That's an or condition because I have more choices. Therefore, whenever you work with an and condition, they are restrictive. As we've been saying, it's everything or nothing at all. Or conditions, they open up. They give you more candidates, more choices, or more options. Let's see an example to clarify that. Here we have a list of our sales reps and their sales amounts for 2 quarters. And we want to know if they are eligible to get a bonus. To get a bonus, they must sell at least $10,000 in both quarters to qualify. So it's going to be an and condition. Why? Because they must sell at least $10,000 in quarter 1 and $10,000 in quarter 2 to get the bonus. Let's build a formula. We'll go up and click on the FX icon, do a search for the if statement. And now it's not too bad. What we can do is lead off by typing the word and, do an open parentheses, then click on our first quarter sales number, type a greater than symbol, followed by an equal sign, the number 10,000, do a comma, click on our second quarter sales numbers, greater than symbol, equal sign, $10,000, close that parentheses. Where it says value if true, we can type the word bonus because if they did meet the circumstances, they'll get the bonus. Where it says value if false, we'll type the word no bonus because they did not qualify for one. Next, we'll click OK. Copy our formula down, and check it out. Not too bad. Moving on, let's take a look at an if-or. Let's say this time around we become a little bit more lenient with our bonuses and decide to change the structure. In this case, they'll get a bonus no matter if they sold $15,000 in quarter 3 or $15,000 in quarter 4. As long as they sold $15,000, they get a bonus. To solve this, we can build an if-or. Let's cruise up and click on the FX icon. Then do a search for the if statement if needed. Then, where it says logical test, we'll lead off by typing the word or, followed by an open parentheses. Click the Q3 sales number, followed by a greater than symbol, equal, the number 15,000. We'll then type a comma, click on the Q4 sales number, greater than symbol, followed by an equal sign, 15,000, and we'll close the parentheses. Where it says value if true, remember, as long as they have 1, they qualify. So we'll type the word bonus. Where it says value of false, we'll type no bonus. We'll click OK, drag our formula down. And there we go. Not too bad. Moving on, let's take some time to talk about everybody's favorite, the nested if. So what exactly is the nested if? Well, it's really a question within a question within a question within a question. You get the idea. Phrased a little differently, what will happen is you'll ask Excel a question, and then Excel will say, is it true? Is it true? Is it true? Is it true? A whole bunch of times. And eventually Excel will capitulate and say, well, it's got to be false. This will obviously be better understood by way of example. So let's take a look at one. Before we get into it, please recognize that Excel has made working with nested ifs a whole heck of a lot easier because they invented a brand new function that will do the heavy lifting for you. Put a different way, in the old days, we would have to write out nested if statements longhand. And frankly, that was a headache in a suitcase. No fun. In 2016, Excel gave us a brand new way to do this stuff. So let's bypass all that old school stuff and jump right into the new feature. In this example, we have our employees, the salary amount, and the tax withholding. And what we want to do is if the person gave a tax withholding of 1, take out 10% of the salary. If they gave a tax withholding of 2, take out 20% of the salary. And if they gave a tax withholding of 3, take out 30% of the salary. We can solve this using the if-s function or ifs function. Honestly, I really don't care how you pronounce it, since the important part is to know how it works. The coolest thing is it's really simple to use. It's practically fill in the blanks. Here we go. We'll go up and click on our FX icon, do a search for IFS. From here, all we have to do is ask the question and tell Excel what to do if the answer is yes. So, starting at the top, we'll ask, is this cell equal to 1? If it is, we'll take our salary times 10%. Then we'll ask, is this cell equal to 2? If it's equal to 2, we'll take the salary times 20%. Then we'll ask, is the cell equal to 3? If it's equal to 3, we'll take the salary times 30%. The only downside to this function is it does not provide an easy way to do a false or no condition. So the way we do that is we kind of have to trick it a little bit. The way we do that is for the final question, we'll type out the word true, and then we'll type out our false response. In this case, if the number is not 1, 2, or 3, what we want to see is the phrase not applicable. So we'll type the word true right here, then follow that with not applicable, click OK, and let's take it for a test drive. And it looks like all systems are go. And just to wrap things up, in case you're in the mood for some trivia, you can do up to 127 levels of questioning using the if-s. Yeah, have fun. And that'll do it. We'll see you in the next lesson. Okay, let's take some time and look at the index and match functions. Now, please recognize the index and match functions standalone really don't do a whole heck of a lot. It's only when you integrate them with other functions does real magic happen. Yet, more often than not, you can make a very strong case that you will see the index and match being used together. So the common progression is you'll learn each function separately and then blend them together. Let's start off with the index function. The way the index function works is it will look at a chunk of cells, and then it will tell you what it finds at the intersection of a row and a column that you specify. Let's see an example. Here we have this table, and on the left side we have the income amount, and across the top we have the allowance amount. So what we want to know is if the person makes $50,000 and has an allowance of 2, how much should we take out? So let's use the index to figure this out. We'll go up and click on our FX icon, type out index, and then we'll just click OK when we get this prompt. From here, we just have to fill in the blanks. The array is just our chunk of cells, so we'll start off by selecting the array, and then it's just a matter of counting out our rows and columns to tell Excel where to look. In this case, we want $50,000, so the $50,000 income happens to live in the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, fifth row, so we'll type in 5, and then we want an allowance of 2, and that happens to live in the 1, 2, 3, third column. From here, we're done. Just click OK, and let's test it. $50,000 is here, allowance of 2 is here, and it looks like we're in good shape. And that's pretty much it for the index. Now granted, nothing too riveting, and standalone, the index doesn't do a whole heck of a lot. Remember, the index is often integrated with other functions. For now, let's move on to the match function. The match function will tell you what row or column a particular item lives in. Put another way, all the match function is going to do is tell you what position the item you're looking for is in. Yeah, that sounds pretty confusing. Let's see an example to clarify it. Let's start off by looking at this allowance row in our table. What we want to know is if the person entered a 0, 1, 2, or 3, what position is it in? And the match will help us figure that out. Now, honestly, the match is easier if you type it out, so let's go ahead and go for it. In this case, we're looking for an allowance of 3, so we'll type out equal match, open parentheses. The lookup value in this case is going to be this cell right here. We'll type a comma, we'll highlight the allowance row, then type a comma. And now here's where people get tripped up. This whole less than, exact match, greater than nonsense. What exactly is going on here? In real life, you'll wind up using 2 of these 3, and they are less than and exact match. The exact match is just that. It's literal. It's going to look for an exact match only. Think of less than as being, I want to find the closest value without going over. And we'll see an example of that here in a couple seconds. For right now, we want to use an exact match because our choices are only 0, 1, 2, and 3. So to finish this formula, we'll type a 0, and there we go. And Excel is telling us that the allowance of 3 happens to live in the 4th position, which is correct. Now, let's see another example of a match, and this one's going to have a slight twist, yet nothing too difficult. Let's say the person makes $65,000 a year, and we want to know where 65K lives in the list. So in this example, there is no $65,000, so we have to find the closest approximate match. Let's go ahead and type the formula. We'll type out equal match, open parentheses, click the income value of 65,000, type a comma, then select our income amounts, type a comma, and in this case, we don't want an exact match. What we want to do is type the number 1, which will let us find the closest value without going over. So we'll type the number 1, close our parentheses, press enter, and it looks like it's working. Just for fun, let's put in a whole bunch of different income amounts just to see what Excel says. And it looks like our formula is cooperating. And that does it for the match function. Again, standalone, the match function does not do a whole heck of a lot. In the next section, we will combine the index and the match function, which will allow us to do more sophisticated lookups. So far, we've looked at the index function and the match function. Ultimately, what we can do is combine the index and match together and have it be a one-stop shop for doing sophisticated lookups. Building off our previous example, what we want to have happen is when a person puts in the income and the allowance, we want to have the amount automatically returned. So we'll start by clicking on the FX. We'll then type the index, and the array is going to be this chunk of cells. Now for the row, here is where we can integrate the match function. Let's type match, open parentheses, click on the cell with the salary, type a comma, select the salary range, type a comma, and we'll type a 1 because we want an approximate match, close the parentheses. Then we'll jump down to where it says column, and we'll type match, open parentheses, select our allowance amount, type a comma, select the range up top, type a comma, and type a 0 because we want an exact match, close the parentheses, and let's take it for a test drive. Not too bad. We have achieved our objective. So let's wrap up the segment by looking at a more practical example. Here we have a list of our employees, their salary amounts, and the amount they want withheld, and we want to know what amount should be withheld based off the combination of their salary and the withholding amount. So over here we have our table of data, and to pull this off, we have to do a combination of the index and match. By now, you know the drill. We'll click the FX and pull up the index. And then for the array, we want this chunk of cells, so we'll select it. In this case, we want the cells to be locked in place, so we'll press the F4 key. Next, for the row, we'll type match, open parentheses, click on the salary, we'll type a comma, we'll then select this range right here, and then press F4 to lock that in. In this case, we want the closest match, so we'll type a 1, close parentheses, then we'll jump down to where it says column, type match, open parentheses, click the withholding, type a comma. We'll then select these cells over here and press F4 to lock them in. In this case, we want an exact match, so we'll type a 0, close parentheses, click OK, drag the formula down, and check it out. We are all set. Okay, let's take a little bit of time and talk about everybody's favorite, the VLOOKUP. So what exactly is the VLOOKUP? Well, to better understand the VLOOKUP, why don't we take a moment and play a little game? Here's the way the game's going to be played. You got volunteered to buy lunch for the entire office. Lucky you. So since you got volunteered to pay for lunch, yours truly only wants to get a large sub. So if we take a quick moment to study our menu, here we have our subtypes on the far left-hand side, the prices for the small, medium, and large. And what I'm going to do is call out a subtype, and I would like you to please tell me how much a large sub is going to cost. So let's give it a go. If I would like a large turkey, how much is that going to be? $8.25. Very good. If I'm looking to get a large Italian, how much is that going to be? $8. Very good. If I like to get a large BLT, $8.25. Hopefully by now you understand the way the game is being played. And believe it or not, guess what you all did? You all just did a VLOOKUP. Look at that. Slid it right under the door and you weren't even aware you did one. So let's take a moment and break this down. The V in VLOOKUP stands for vertical. So the way the VLOOKUP works is you look at a chunk of cells and the information is displayed vertically. And then what you do is you start on the far left-hand side trying to find what you want. Once you find what you want, you then count over X number of columns to find the appropriate response. So let's go back to our sub example and take a look at things on a granular level. What happened when a subtype was called out? You subconsciously went to the far left-hand side to find the item. And then what you did is you counted over X number of columns to find the appropriate price. So phrased differently, what you did is you went to column 1 and then you counted over 2, 3, 4 to find the appropriate price. That's the way the VLOOKUP works. All that being said, a really good way to remember and conceptualize the VLOOKUP is the VLOOKUP is analogous to looking up a price on a menu item. So enough goofing around, let's take a look at a more practical example. Here we have a list of data, and you notice that it displays our product type, our inventory, our price, our vendor, and our region for a total of 5 columns. And what we want to do is when we type in a particular product type, we want to have the appropriate vendor returned. So we will obviously use the VLOOKUP to solve this. So we'll go up and click on our FX, do a search for the VLOOKUP. And now right here where it says lookup value, all that really means is what cell do you want to use? So we'll click on this cell right here. Where it says table array, that's just a fancy way of saying what chunk of cells do you want to use. So we'll select our chunk of cells over here. And then after we select our cells, what we have to do is lock them in place so they won't move. And we can do that by pressing our F4 key. You'll notice our dollar signs appear. So that tells us our cells are anchored in place. Where it says column index number, all that means is what column are we getting our response from? In this case, we want the vendor, which happens to live in the 4th column. So we'll type in the number 4. Last part is where it says range lookup. And what we'll do is type in the word false. When we type in the word false, all that means is Excel will only return a response if it finds an exact match in the column that we're looking in. Put another way, if we happen to type in a product type that is not on our list, Excel will get very angry at us and not give a response. And we'll demonstrate that here in a couple moments. For now, just click OK. Let's take it for a test drive to see if it works. If we got it right, when we type in our product type, the appropriate vendor should be returned. And it looks like it's working. Excellent. And right there is your VLOOKUP. Now, just to wrap things up, if we happen to type in a product that does not exist, what will happen is Excel will get angry, as you can see here. Now, outside of demanding people type in data properly, which is most likely not going to happen, the best way to get rid of this ugly error message is to use something called the if error. Now, we have a separate module dedicated to how the if error works, so we recommend you check that one out. Else, that'll do it for the VLOOKUP, and we'll see you in the next one. Okay, let's take a look at the XLOOKUP. Just so you understand, you can make a very strong case that the XLOOKUP will replace the VLOOKUP, HLOOKUP, index, and match functions. The best part is the XLOOKUP overcomes a lot of the limitations of other functions. It's very powerful and it's very flexible. The best part is it's very easy to use. Here we have a list of data. Let's say we want to find the inventory amount based off this product type. To do that, we'll click the FX icon, do a search for XLOOKUP, and from here, it's simply fill in the blanks. For the lookup value, we'll click this cell. The lookup array is going to be our list of products, so we'll select this chunk of cells right here. The return array is going to be the inventory column, so we'll select these cells right here. Click OK, and there we go. Now, if we type a different product type, the appropriate inventory amount will show up, which is good. Moving on, the XLOOKUP has a lot of cool bells and whistles built into it, one of which is the if not found. The if not found will allow you to type in an error message in case the XLOOKUP can't find it. It's very straightforward. We'll go up here and click the FX icon to edit the formula. And then where it says if not found, let's be ridiculously creative and type out not found. Click OK. Now, if we type a product that does not exist on our list, Excel should come back and bark at us. And it looks like it's cooperating. Now let's see how we can use the XLOOKUP when your data is displayed as a table or a grid. So put another way, yes, the function can do a two-way lookup. In order to accomplish this, we have to create what's called a nested XLOOKUP, which is an XLOOKUP within an XLOOKUP. So to make this easier on ourselves, we'll do it in steps. We'll start by creating our first XLOOKUP, which is going to give some results that we don't care about because all we want to do is just copy the formula for later use. And we can use the copied formula to build the second XLOOKUP. Let's see an example. Here we have our table or grid of data. with our product types listed on the left-hand side, our countries going across the top, and what we want to do is build a nested XLOOKUP that when we type in a product type and a country, it'll return the appropriate sales amount. Let's start by building our first XLOOKUP. We'll cruise up and click the FX icon, do a search for the XLOOKUP. For the lookup value, we'll click this product type. The lookup array is going to be the list of products. And for the return array, let's select the entire chunk of cells. Now, when we press enter, Excel is going to give us a row of sales amounts. That's okay because all we want to do is just copy the formula. Next, we'll go up here into the formula bar and we will copy everything except for the equal sign because we don't need it. After we copy it, we can delete the formula because we don't need it anymore. Now we'll build the second XLOOKUP. Let's go up and click the FX icon, choose XLOOKUP again. This time the lookup value will be the country. The lookup array will be the list of countries, so we'll select that. And where it says return array, we'll paste in the copied XLOOKUP formula, since this will create the two-way lookup. Click OK, and everything looks like it is cooperating. Just for fun, let's create a couple different combinations just to see what we get. So let's conclude this module with a little bit of commentary. At this point, we're at a very interesting juncture in Excel's history, with people having very different and polarizing viewpoints. Starting from a historical perspective, the VLOOKUP has been around for over 30 years, with the match and index being very close behind. And the people in this camp take the viewpoint that the VLOOKUP, index, and match are legacy functions and going nowhere anytime soon. On the other side, there are people that say the VLOOKUP, match, and index are essentially dead, and the XLOOKUP is the way of the future because the XLOOKUP takes the place of those functions. And frankly, both sides have pretty strong arguments. For what it's worth, my 2 cents is that yes, moving forward, the XLOOKUP is the way of the future. Yet, if you look at the big companies who have been using the match and index for decades, and the hundreds of thousands of spreadsheets they have that use those functions, there is no way they're going to go back and replace all those spreadsheets that have the match and index functions in it with the XLOOKUP. That is not going to happen. So in the end, the best bet is to familiarize yourself with all three. Learn the index, learn the match, learn the XLOOKUP, and your career in Excel will be a lot easier. Okay, let's take some time and look at the SUMIF. What exactly is the SUMIF? Well, simply put, think of the SUMIF as being circumstantial addition. You want to add up a couple things if they meet a particular set of conditions. And that's about as complicated as it gets. By way of example, here we have some regions, some products, and some sales amounts. And let's say we want to add up all the sales from the South region. We can use the SUMIF to figure that out. Let's go up here and click on the FX icon, do a search for SUMIF, and make sure to choose SUMIF, not SUMIFs. And from here, we can just fill in the blanks. Our range, in this case, is going to be the list of the regions, so we'll select those. We are looking for the South, so we'll click a cell that contains the text South. And the last part is the sum range, which is just our numbers. Let's select these numbers, click OK, and there you go. Now, let's see another example of the SUMIF. In this case, let's say we want to add up all of our sales that are over $7,500. Let's fire up our SUMIF. And now where it says the range, in this case, we can just select our numbers. And where it says criteria, we can type out greater than, equal, $7,500. Once we click OK, there's our answer. Moving on, now that we know the SUMIF, just recognize the main limitation it has is it's essentially a one-trick pony. It can only get you one set of criteria. If you want to get multiple set of conditions or multiple criteria, you have to use the SUMIFs. Let's take a look at that. So in this case, we want the total sales from all the leashes that were sold in the South. So by now, you know the drill. We'll go up and click where it says FX. We'll do a search for SUMIFs. And then here it's a little backwards, but it's not too bad. We'll start off with the sum range. So we will select our numbers here. Then where it says criteria range, we'll highlight our regions. And within that region, we're looking for South. So we'll click that. And then for criteria range 2, we'll select our products. And then here we want to find all the leashes. So we'll click a cell that contains leash. Click OK. And right there is the total sales of all the leashes from the South. And there's your SUMIFs. one public service announcement just in the event you ever do any type of COUNTIFs, SUMIFs, AVERAGEIFs, or whatever. If you ever intend to sort your list, it's a very good idea to type out what you're looking for as opposed to clicking on the cell like we did in these examples. The reason for that is when you sort your list, it's going to screw up the formula's results. So put another way, if I was going to be doing this in real life and knew I was going to sort the list at some point, what I would do is type out what I'm looking for. For example, I would have typed out South as opposed to clicking on the cell that contains South because I did not want to screw up my formulas if I did a sort. Again, the choice is yours. Just recognize the environment that you're playing with whenever you do these types of things. It's really circumstantial as to you doing a sort or not in real life. Hopefully it made some sense to you, and we'll see you in the next lesson. Okay, moving on. The next one we will take a look at is the average if. What exactly is the average if? Well, the good news is if you have the SUMIF under your belt, you already know the average if. It's simply a different type of calculation being done. All you have to do is just swap sum for average. Here we go. In this case, we want to find the average sales from the South. Let's go up and click the FX icon, do a search for average if. Again, make sure you get average if, not average ifs. Click OK. And from here, just fill in the blanks. The range is going to be our regions, so we'll select those. We're looking for the South in this case, so we'll click a cell that contains South. And then for the average range, we'll simply select our sales numbers, click OK, and there we go. Let's take a look at another example. Let's say we want to get an average of all of our sales if they were over $5,000. Let's go up and click on the FX icon. And now this time where it says range, we'll simply select our sales numbers. And for the criteria, we'll type out greater than or equal to 5,000. Click OK, and right there's the answer. Next, let's take a look at the average ifs. The average ifs will allow us to find the average of multiple criteria. Let's say in this case, we want to find the average sale from the leashes sold in the South. Let's click the FX icon, do a search for average ifs. Now in this case, what we have to do is feed our numbers in first, of which we'll do. Where it says criteria range 1, we'll select our regions and choose South. For criteria range 2, we'll select our products and click leash. Click OK, and there we go. All right, if you've been following along, we have covered the SUMIF, SUMIFs, average if, average ifs, and now let's take a look at the COUNTIF. The COUNTIF will allow us to get a very granular count of what we're looking for. In this case, let's say we want to get a count of all of our leash orders. Let's click the FX icon, do a search for COUNTIF, and make sure to get COUNTIF, not COUNTIFs. Click OK. For the range, we'll select our product. The criteria will be leash. Click OK. Right there is the count of our leash orders. And let's conclude this lesson by taking a look at the COUNTIFs. And I'm quite sure by now you may have guessed it. The COUNTIFs will allow us to count multiple criteria. In this case, let's say we want to get a count of all the leash orders from the South. So we'll go up and click on the FX icon, do a search for COUNTIFs, click OK. And for criteria range 1, we'll start off with our regions and then click the South. And for criteria range 2, we'll select our products. We'll click a cell that contains leash, click OK. And right there is the leash orders from the South. Okay, let's take a look at the large function. What exactly is the large function? The large function will show you the largest value in a list given the position you want to see. Best understood by way of example. Here we have a list of all the customer sources that we use to promote the company, how much each source brought in sales, and let's say we want to see which source brought in the most sales, the second highest amount of sales, and the third highest amount of sales. For starters, we could use the max function to find the largest, but let's do an alternative and see how the large function works. Let's type equal large, open parentheses, select our sales amounts, type a comma, and then type the number 1, close parentheses, press enter, and here is the top sales amount. Okay, admittedly nothing to write home about, but now let's make it a little more interesting. let's say we want to find the second highest sales amount in our list. Here is where we can leverage the large function to our advantage. Let's type out equal large, open parentheses, select our sales, type a comma, then the number 2, close parentheses, press enter, and there's the second highest amount in our list. And just for fun, let's figure out the third highest amount in our list. And there we go. Now that we have an idea of how the large function works, let's see a more practical example. Let's say the boss wants us to add up the top 3, 5, and 7 of our sales amounts. To solve this, we'll have to ask Excel to look at these numbers, find the top 3, and then add them up. The only wrinkle in this is you need to use something called an array to build the formula. Now, arrays can be pretty deep. They can be very intimidating. In this case, the array will allow us to do multiple calculations by plugging in or passing through multiple values. Admittedly, that sounds a little goofy, but it's not as bad as it seems. So to solve this, we'll go up here and click on the FX icon, do a search for the sum function, and then once you get it, where it says number 1, just type the following: large, open parentheses, select your sales amounts, type a comma, do a curly bracket, followed by 1, 2, 3, curly bracket, then close parentheses. So what's inside those curly brackets is going to force Excel to find the top 1, 2, and 3 values in our list. Click OK, and there we go. Moving on, now that we know the pattern to use to get the top 5, all we have to do is when we type out the array, make sure to include numbers 1 through 5. Same concept applies for the top 7. We just have to type out numbers 1 through 7. And just to wrap this up, granted, working with arrays is not the most fun. We're doing a lot of typing, but yet the results that we get are arguably worth it. And I'll see you in the next lesson. All right, let's take a little bit of time and talk about the sum product. What exactly is the sum product? Well, what it's going to do is it's going to take your values, multiply them together, and then add them up. Honestly, at first glance, that seems kind of dull and useless. Why even bother in the first place? We'll take a look at a basic example just to get a feel for how it works. And then once you see the more practical example, it'll make more sense. Here we have our data, and let's say we want to get our total sales. Now to figure that out, what most people would do is they would type a new field called total, then multiply the quantity times the price, get that answer, then drag the numbers down and add them up. And frankly, there's nothing wrong with that. Using the sum product lets us get the exact same solution in a lot more efficient manner. Let's take a look. Let's go up and click on the FX icon, do a search for sum product, and now all we have to do is give Excel the numbers. For array 1, we'll select our quantities, jump down to array 2, select the prices, click OK, and now we get the exact same result. So what Excel did is it multiplied the first column by the second column, took those results, added them up, and showed us the total. All right, now that we have a basic understanding of how the sum product works, let's take a look at a more practical example. In this case, we have an employee performance score, and we want to show a weighted average. Weighted averages take into consideration various degrees of importance. Put another way, some numbers are more important than others. So the things we are measuring includes, do they take continuing education? Do they work overtime? Are they accurate? How often are they absent? Are they a team player? Are they productive? And do they take on new projects? Then we have a column that shows the overall importance of each measure, or the weight assigned to each score. These weights add up to 100, and in our case, it looks like we focus on accuracy, productivity, and are they a team player? The other ones aren't that important and don't carry that much weight. So by way of comparison, let's first figure out a standard average. We'll type out equal, average, open parentheses, select our scores, press enter, and there we go. Next, let's figure out the weighted average. To do this, we'll need to do two things. First, we'll use the sum product to multiply the scores by the weights, and then take that result and divide it by the sum of the weights. This time, we'll type out the formula just for a little variety because it's not that bad. Here we go. We'll type out equal, sum product, do an open parentheses, select our first column, do a comma, select our second column, close that parentheses, then we'll divide that by the sum of our weights. Make sure to close that parenthesis, press enter, and there we go. Okay, let's take a few moments to study the rank function. What exactly is the rank function? The rank function will do what the name implies. It will look at a range of numbers and then show you what position or rank that value is in. Let's see an example. Here we have our customer sources, the sales amount from each source, and we want to see which one is the best and which one is the worst. We'll use the rank formula to determine that. Click the FX icon, do a search for rank, and then where it says number, we'll click on our sales amount, jump down to where it says ref, and we'll select our sales amounts. From there, we'll press the F4 key to lock our cells in place and to use them for comparison purposes. Click OK, drag the formula down, and right there is our rankings. Uh-oh, looks like the interns did it again. Apparently, they copied in a bunch of data and didn't combine everything into a single table. Oh no, horrors of horrors, what shall we do? In the old days, this would mean a lot of copying and pasting. Fortunately, there's a function out there called VSTACK, which will make our lives a lot easier. The VSTACK allows us to combine all these separate chunks into one big, neat table. Let's see a few ways we can use this. For the first illustration, notice that we have the column headings we want to use over here. Now we can go up and click on the FX icon, do a search for VSTACK, and from this point, all we have to do is select all the data in the tables. So where it says Array 1, we'll select this chunk of cells, jump down to Array 2, and select this chunk of cells, jump down to Array 3, select this chunk of cells, click OK, and there we go. Check it out. Moving on, let's take a look at another example of how to use the VSTACK. Let's say in this example, there is no designated area for the column headers, and we want to include them on the new table. To do this, all we have to do is make sure to include the column headers on the first selection of the VSTACK. Let's go up and click the FX, do a search for VSTACK, and now for Array 1, let's be careful and make sure we include the column headings. Jump down to Array 2, select just the data. For Array 3, just select the data, click OK, and there we go. In conclusion, let's talk about a few finer points of the VSTACK. Be aware that this function is linked to the source data, so if any of the source data would change, so would the results of the VSTACK. If you're okay with this, feel free to let things be. If you have to use the raw data, simply copy it, do a paste special, paste values. That's it for this lesson. We'll see you in the next one. Okay, let's take a look at the offset. What exactly is the offset? Well, from the get-go, just realize the offset function is kind of the oddball of the Excel functions. Admittedly, it's kind of goofy, it's kind of awkward, but it does serve a purpose. Before we see the function in action, let's take a moment to describe the way it works. So imagine yourself looking through a pair of binoculars, and you're looking at a particular point. Then what you do is you move down, then you move across, and then you start to play with the zoom, making the image larger or smaller. That's analogous to the way the offset function works. With the offset, you have a beginning point, then you move down X number of rows, then you move across X number of columns. From there, you tell Excel to grab a chunk of cells because you want to do something with it. Before we go any further, let's take a moment to recognize that the offset function is typically used with dynamic ranges. And I made the conscious decision to throw practicality out the window and simply focus on how exactly the offset function works. Let's start with a super simple example just for the sake of clarity, and then we'll move into more practical examples. So here we have our data with our product categories going down the left-hand side, our regions going across the top, and what we want to do is extract some of those numbers so we can work with them. In this case, we want to see how much dog food was sold in the South. Let's use the offset function to extract just that number. Let's go up and click the FX icon, do a search for offset, and now where it says reference, reference means starting point. So in this case, we want Excel to start right here. Now Excel's going to get a little angry. That's okay, we'll just ignore that. The next thing is to tell Excel how many rows to count down. In this case, we're looking for dog food, so we'll move down 1, 2, 3 rows, and then type the number 3. The next thing Excel wants to know is how many columns to count over. In this case, we are looking for the South, so we'll count over 1, 2, 3 columns. We'll type the number 3. We'll just ignore height and width for right now. We'll see that in the next example. Simply click OK, and we should get $28,000. And there we go. Again, a very impractical example. The goal here is just to get you warmed up as to how the offset function works. Okay, let's see a more practical example. The way the offset function really works is you give Excel a starting point. It will then move down X number of rows, then across X number of columns, and that gives Excel a new point. From there, you tell Excel how many cells to grab or to extract. And this is done by using the height and width portion of the function dialog box. If you go back to that binocular analogy we gave you at the beginning of the lesson, the zoom portion of making your area larger or smaller is how the height and width portion of the function dialog box works. Let's see an example to clarify it. In this case, the boss wants to see the numbers for the dog food and the dog treats from the south and the west. And since the boss wants to see them, we have to extract them. Let's click the FX icon, and then for the reference, we'll give it this starting point right here. For the rows, we'll count down 3 because the dog food lives here. Then for the columns, we'll count over 1, 2, 3 because the south lives here. That gives us a new starting point. For the height and width, here's how much we tell Excel to grab. If we type in a number of 2, that will tell Excel to grow 2 rows. If we type in a width of 2, that will tell Excel to grow 2 columns. Put another way, when we type in those values, Excel will grab this chunk of cells right here. When we click OK, Excel will extract out those chunk of cells and show them to us. And right there is the chunk of cells we are looking for. That is the dog food and the dog treats from the south and the west. All right, so by now you have a better understanding of how the offset function works in its entirety, yet still wondering why would you even do this in the first place? Well, please understand that the offset function is best utilized when it is nested with other functions. Let's see an example to clarify that. So for this final example, let's say that for whatever reason, the boss saw an offset function video somewhere, has become enamored with it, and wants you to take the average of the dog food and the dog treats from the south and the west. Lucky us. So just to make this easier, we'll go up here and copy our existing offset formula. We'll then jump down here and type equal average, open parentheses, copy in the offset formula, close parentheses, and there we go. All right, so let's wrap this lesson up. As we've learned, the offset function is kind of clunky and kind of awkward. And as we stated, the goal here was simply to illustrate the way the offset function works. Hopefully this has helped you out, and we'll see you in the next one. Okay, let's take a look at the IFERROR. What exactly is the IFERROR function? Well, the way it works is if at some point in your spreadsheet you have an error message, and by error message, we mean something like pound name, pound value, pound reference, pound div 0, pound sand, whatever Excel is getting upset about, you can use the IFERROR to replace that ugly error message with some text of your choosing. It's very simple, very easy, and very direct. The way the IFERROR works is like this. Your function literally reads equal IFERROR, function goes here, comma, error message in quotes. Let's see an example to clarify. Here we have our obvious error message, and if we want to fix this and make it easier on our eyes, we can go up here into the formula bar and click between the equal and the first letter of our formula, and then type IFERROR, open parentheses, do not touch the formula, click on the far right-hand side, type a comma, open quote, type our error message, close quote, close paren, and right there is your IFERROR. Now, just to wrap things up, please recognize the IFERROR is very blunt. The intent behind the IFERROR is to use it whenever you have any type of error message on your spreadsheet. Some people like it, some people don't. Personally, for what it's worth, I like it because it makes my life easier and it's very simple to use. That said, there's your IFERROR. Feel free to use it as you wish, and we'll see you in the next one. If you've been following along, let's shift gears and talk about text functions. So why would you want to use a text function? Well, let's be honest. Somebody will send you, or sometimes you might inherit, garbage files. The text is just a hot mess, and what you have to do is clean it up so you can work with it. This is where text functions will come in handy. The good news is, for the most part, they're very easy to work with. They're very direct and very straightforward. In no particular order, let's take a look at some of the more commonly used text functions. So here is a list of our departments, and notice that the department is combined with somebody's name, their employee ID, and the city and state in which they live. To kick things off, let's say that we want to extract the last 4 digits of their employee ID number. The way we do that is to use something called the write function. The write function will look at your target cell and then count over and return X number of characters that you designate. In this case, it looks like we want Excel to count over 4 characters from the right and return what it finds. We can click here and type equal, write, open parentheses, click our target cell, type a comma, followed by the number 4, press enter, and there's the last 4 digits of their ID. From here, we can drag our formula down. There we go. That's about as complicated as the write function gets. Moving on, let's take a look at the left function. The left function will look at our target cell and then return the amount of characters from the left that we want to see. In this case, let's say we want to separate our departments from our employee names. Let's use the left function to help with that and type out equal, left, open parentheses, click our target cell, type a comma, and in this case, it looks like we want 3 characters. So we'll type the number 3, press enter, copy it down, and there we go. That's about as complicated as the left function gets. So far, we've looked at the basic left and right functions, and you can make a case that knowing just those 2 functions will get you through your day. Yet every now and then, things can get a little funky. And by that we mean sometimes you want to extract data from the left or the right, but things aren't consistent. For example, here we have a list of our cities and our states, and let's say that we want to extract the city from the left-hand side. The problem is the cities aren't exactly the same length. So to solve this, we'll have to be a little creative and integrate something called the search function. Basically, the search function will do just that. It will search for the character that we're looking for. In this case, we're searching for the comma, and we want to see everything to the left of the comma. So believe it or not, to get this to work, the best thing to do is actually type out the function. So what I'll do is I'll type out the function first, and then I'll verbalize the thought process that Excel goes through. So we'll type out equal, left, open parentheses, click on our target cell, type a comma, type the word search, do an open parentheses, type an open quote, comma, quote, type another comma, click on our target cell again, do a close parentheses, then type -1, do a close parentheses, press enter, and there we go. Okay, admittedly, that's a little crazy. So what's going on here? We're saying, hey, Excel, starting from the left of the cell, we want you to search for the comma. And then when you find the comma, return everything to the left of the comma, -1. Now, where people get hung up is this whole -1 thing. What exactly is that? The reason we're doing that is because if we did not type in -1, Excel would show the city along with the comma. And clearly we don't want that. So when we type in -1, we're telling Excel to subtract out that comma. This is something you'll have to practice in real life if you choose to. Now, granted, there are other solutions available within Excel, of which we'll cover. And the only reason this lesson was included was in the event that you encounter an old spreadsheet that has been around for a long time and might actually have a formula like this integrated into it. I wanted to take the time to explain just exactly what is happening. And that's it for this lesson. If you've been following along, in the previous lesson, we talked to you about how to extract text from the left-hand side of a cell when the text is not consistent, and we use the left function combined with the search function to pull this off. In this lesson, we'll talk to you about how to extract text from the right-hand side of the cell when you're working with combined data. So if you enjoyed the previous lesson, we got a little something special for you on this one. You're going to love this. This is where things get a little muddied. In order to solve this, you'll need to use 3 things. You'll need to use the write function, the search function, and something called the len function. Technically, the len will tell you the amount of characters in a string. And by itself, it doesn't do a whole heck of a lot. It's only when you nest it with other functions do you get some mileage out of it. So just like the previous example, it's actually easier to type this thing out by hand. So I'll do just that and then explain to you the thought process that Excel's going through. Here we go. So we'll type out equal, write, open parentheses, click on our target cell, type a comma, then type len, do an open parentheses, click on our target cell again, close those parentheses, type a minus, then we'll type search, do an open parentheses, open quote, type an underscore, close the quotes, type a comma, click on our target cell one more time, and then balance out our parentheses, press enter, and there we go. Oh, that is just obscenely ridiculous. What in the heck is going on here? Because that is just flat out painful. Here's how it works. Let me walk you through the thought process. And just know I'll explain it a few ways just so you can try to wrap your mind around what's going on here. The important thing to realize is that everything starts from the right-hand side. So we're asking Excel, starting from the right-hand side, look at the length of this cell. Then, while you're doing that, we want you to subtract out or don't show anything beyond the underscore. So for the sake of clarity, let's go one level deeper and get a little more technical just so you understand. So we're asking Excel, starting from the right, we want you to look at the total length of the cell. Once you get that length, subtract out everything up to the underscore and return everything from the right. Yeah, it's kind of goofy and definitely a roundabout way of doing things. The key takeaway is to understand the way Excel thinks. And yes, it might take you a little while to get your mind around this. Furthermore, there are easier ways to accomplish this in Excel, of which we will show you. Again, just to reiterate, the main reason this was included in this lesson is because we simply wanted you to be aware in the event that you inherit a spreadsheet that has had these type of formulas built into them. All right, that'll do it for this lesson, and we'll see you in the next one. Okay, let's take a look at something called text to columns. What exactly is text to columns? Well, frankly, it kind of does exactly what the name implies. It will take your text and divide it into separate columns. People may ask, why in the world would you do this? Well, the general rule of thumb is that when you work with text, you want to break it down into its smallest possible pieces. And sadly, sometimes people send you or you import text in one big chunk, and you got to break it apart to work with it. Let's see how it's done. In this case, it looks like somebody gave us a list of people's names, cities, and states, and what we want to do is break it apart further so we can work with the text. So we'll start by selecting our text, then go to the Data tab, and then we want to look for where it says Text to Columns. Click that, and this nifty little wizard will open up. This wizard will walk you through the subdividing of your text. So let's go ahead and click on where it says Next, and here's where the fun starts. What the wizard is doing is it's looking for convenient breakpoints. Those convenient breakpoints are often tabs, semicolons, comma, spaces, or something else. What you want to do is let the wizard know what the separator is or which one you're trying to use, and Excel will do its best to parse out the text. If we study our list, it stands to reason that we want to try to separate our list at the spaces and the commas. Phrased differently, from a logical perspective, it seems like the best move would be to break things down into the first name, last name, city, and state. So let's let Excel know that we are working with commas and spaces in our list, and let's see what it gives us. As we scroll through here, it looks like everything has been separated out real nice and neat, so we'll go ahead and click on Next. Without getting too deep into it, we'll accept the defaults that Excel gives us, and then where it says Destination, let's click this cell right here. Click Finish. And voila, there we go. A nice, neat, separated list. Awesome. So to wrap this up, please recognize that the text to columns is not a cure-all. It's not 100% reliable in every instance. However, it will do the bulk of the heavy lifting for you, so it's worth giving it a try. Just recognize every now and then you may have to massage the results a little bit to get it to be what you want, but other than that, it's actually pretty cool. And that'll do it for this lesson. We'll see you in the next one. Okay, in this lesson, we'll take a look at something called concatenation. So what exactly is concatenation? Well, simply put, concatenation is when you glue two or more cells together. That's it. True to form, Excel gives you a whole variety of ways to do concatenation. In this case, we'll keep it simple and direct and show you the most popular method people use. Let's frame an example here. Let's say we have our first name and our last name, and what we want to do is glue them together to create a full name. We can use concatenation to accomplish this. Here's all you got to do. You type out equal, click on your target cell, type in ampersand, open quote, press space, close quote, ampersand, click on your other cell. Press enter. From here, we can drag everything down, and we're all set. Just to take this one step further, you want to read the ampersands as plus signs. Put a different way, the formula really reads like this. You want to take this cell plus a space plus that cell. That's pretty much about it. Once you get that concept under your belt, concatenation is a breeze. That will conclude this lesson. We'll see you in the next one. All right, in this section, we'll take a look at the case functions. What exactly are the case functions? As you may have guessed, the case functions allow you to change the case of the text on your spreadsheet. We'll take a look at 3 of them: the upper, the lower, and the proper, starting with the upper. Let's take a moment to study our data. In this case, we have some data that was submitted through our web forms. And as you can clearly tell, some of these folks were quite incapable of typing properly. So we have to clean this up. Lucky us. If we choose to use the upper function, that will force all of our text into uppercase. It's very easy. Here's the way it works. We type equal, upper, open parentheses, click on our target cell, press enter, and all that content has been forced to uppercase. Drag it down, and we are good to go. Moving right along, let's take a look at the lower function. What will the lower function do? It'll take our text and force everything into lowercase. Here's the way it works. We type equal, lower, open parentheses, click our target cell, press enter. From here, we can drag things down. And there you have it. Let's wrap this lesson up by taking a look at the proper function. What will the proper function do? Well, it'll force our text into proper case, which means the first letter of each word will be capitalized. Here we go. Let's type equal, proper, open parentheses, click our target cell, press enter, drag the formula down, and there you have it. How complicated was that? All 3 of those are very simple and very straightforward. The biggest question is, which one do you want to use? That'll do it for this lesson, and we'll see you in the next one. Let's take some time and look at the trim function. What exactly is the trim function? Well, this one might be a career saver for some folks. What the trim function will do is it will look at your cell, and then it will remove any leading, additional, and end spaces. Here's an example. It looks like we have imported some comments from our web forms, and once again, true to form, people fail to use the spacebar properly. Imagine that. Let's use the trim function to reduce our aggravation. Here we go. We'll type out equal, trim, open parentheses, click on the cell with the offending text, press enter, and look at that. Let's drag everything down, and there we go. That's about as complicated as it gets. We will see you in the next lesson. Okay, let's take a little bit of time and talk about some newer functions that Microsoft introduced a while back that will make our lives easier when we are working with text. And they are the TEXTBEFORE, TEXTAFTER, and TEXTSPLIT. Let's kick things off with the TEXTBEFORE. If we take a second and study our data, here we have our names, and what we want to do is separate them. If we choose to go with the TEXTBEFORE will return everything it finds before a specific delimiter. In this case, we want to find everything before the space. Here we go. We'll type out equal, TEXTBEFORE, open parentheses, click on our cell, type a comma, open quote, press space, close quote, close paren, copy it down, and there we go. Next, let's take a look at the TEXTAFTER. With the TEXTAFTER, what will happen is Excel will return everything it finds after a specified delimiter. We can type out equal, TEXTAFTER, open parentheses, click on our cell, type a comma, type an open quote, space, close quote, close parentheses. Excel will then return everything it finds after the space. We can then copy it down, and we are good to go. Moving on, we'll take a look at the TEXTSPLIT. The TEXTSPLIT will do just that. It will look at your cell and then split the content at the separator you specify. In our case, we want to separate things at the space. So here we go. We'll type out equal, TEXTSPLIT, open parentheses, click on our cell, type a comma, open quote, press our space bar, close quote, close parentheses, and check it out. Text has been split. From here, we can copy it down, and we are good to go. All right, so we will end things here. Just be aware that these text functions can be taken out a few steps further by allowing you to use various modes, matching types, what happens if it's not found, etc. So instead of doing a deep dive and getting bogged down with nuance, the goal here was just to give you an idea of how these functions work. Okay, if you have been following along for the past few lessons, we have been spending a lot of time talking about how to work with text. And you can make a very strong case that some of what we have done can really be classified as arduous and tedious and flat out inconvenient to work with. So now is as good a time as any to start working with something called the flash fill. So what exactly is the flash fill? Well, a quick history lesson, the flash fill was introduced way back in 2013, and to Microsoft's credit, they have really made some improvements on it. In a nutshell, the flash fill will automatically fill in your data when Excel detects a pattern. Basically, you start typing some stuff and Excel will do the heavy lifting. It's pretty straightforward and very easy to use. Let's look at a few examples. Here we have a list of our departments, the employees, and they're separated with an underscore. Just for the sake of illustration, let's say we want to separate out all the departments. We can do that by clicking in the adjacent column, type out our first department, press Enter, then press Control E, and there we go. And that's about as complicated as it gets. You now know everything you need to know about the flash fill. Let's keep going. Let's undo that, and let's say we want to get the person's name. What we can do is type out the person's name, press Enter, do a Control E, and there we go. Let's keep going. Down here we have a list of our city and states, and let's say we want to separate them. Here we have a couple choices. What we can do is just type out the city in one cell, the state in another, and then do our flash fill. Or we can type out the city, flash fill it, state, flash fill it. Choice is yours. Next example. Let's say we have a list of our first names, last names, city, and state. And what we want to do is break them apart into 4 adjacent cells, and we can do that by using the flash fill. Now again, we have a couple options here. In this case, we'll type the first name, do a flash fill, type the last name, flash fill, type the city, do a flash fill, type the state, flash fill, and check that one off the list. The other cool thing with the flash fill is it is very flexible. There are a lot of unique and creative things you can do with it. By way of example, let's say the boss wants us to create a whole list of email addresses, and the email addresses read like this. It's the person's first initial, underscore, full last name, followed by the company's domain name. So here is where the flash fill can really save us some time. We'll click over here and type out our first initial, underscore, last name, @ symbol, type the domain, press Enter, Control E. Oh my gosh, check that out. Man, not too bad. So moving forward, feel free to play around with the flash fill just to see what you get. And that will do it for the flash fill. Okay, in this lesson, we will take some time to learn how to clean data. Now, why in the world will we ever clean our data in the first place? Well, let's be honest. Sometimes we import data, we get it from an external source, and the results of that import is just a flat mess. We simply cannot work with what we have. Put another way, whenever you work with or want to manipulate your data, Excel likes things to be neat, tidy, and broken down into very small pieces. As we go through this lesson, please recognize there are many ways to clean your data, and this is in no way intended to be comprehensive. In real life, you may have to go through a couple additional steps to get things to be the way you want. That said, let's get into it. Here we have some data that was imported from our web form, and at first glance, we have a hot mess on our hands. How predictable. So what's wrong? Well, in no particular order, we have some gaps in our data, some bad typing, awkward shading, and to top things off, all of our line items are crammed into one cell. So let's get to work and fix this. Probably the best place to start is to remove our blank rows. Now there's a cool little gimmick we can do, and it goes like this. Let's start by selecting our list, and then press the F5 key. Then choose Special. From there, click Blanks. And this will make Excel highlight all the blank rows. And then to remove those rows, we can do a Control minus. We'll get this dialog box. And from here, we'll click Shift Cells Up, and that will compact our list. Next thing, let's clear our formatting. We can do that by selecting our list, and then we'll go over here and click where it says Clear Formats. So that will definitely make it easier on our eyes. Next, let's check for duplicates. Now, why do we do that? Having duplicates within your list can really screw things up, so we want to clear them out. To check for duplicates, we can select our list, then go up and click on the Data tab, then choose Remove Duplicates. In this case, we'll accept the defaults, click OK, and lo and behold, we did have some duplicates. Moving on, and a quick reminder, whenever you work with data, it's a really good idea to break it into smaller parts. The rationale behind that is it makes the data easier to work with. So in this case, we clearly want to break our data apart, and we have a couple choices. We could either A, use the flash fill, or B, use text to columns. In this case, let's go with text to columns. Let's start by selecting our list, and then click Data, Text to Columns, leave it as delimited, and click Next. And let's see, it looks like we are working with commas, so let's check this box here, and that looks like that's the best we're going to get. Let's click on Next. In this case, we'll leave things as is and put our destination right here. Click Finish, and there we go. So far, so good. At this point, we can type in some column headings to make our data a little bit more legible. So we'll type them in, select them, and make them bold for easy reading. So it appears we still have some more work to do. It looks like our names could use an assist. Our addresses have some inconsistent spacing. The cities and states need to be fixed up. And it looks like some people did not provide their phone numbers. Go figure. If we start with our names, it stands to reason we'd want to break them down into first name and last name. Let's go up here and insert two columns by doing a right click and choose Insert. And once we're done that, we'll type in our column headings. From here, we can separate the names by using the flash fill. So we'll type our first name here, do a Control E, then we'll type our last name here, do a Control E. Let's see what we get. Okay, not 100% of what we wanted, but we can fix that up later. Let's keep going. Putting the focus on our addresses, we can clearly see some bad spacing. Let's insert a blank column so we have some room to work. And from here, we can use the trim function because it will take out any leading, additional, and extra spaces. So we'll type out equal, trim, open parentheses, click on our cell, press Enter, copy it down. That looks pretty good. Next, let's take a look at our cities. We can clearly tell that we have some bad lettering here. So why don't we use the proper function to fix this? Let's insert a blank column and then type out equal, proper, open paren, click the city, press Enter, copy it down, and that looks to be squared away. Moving on, let's take a look at our states. Obviously, we want our states to be in all uppercase, so we can use the upper function here. We'll type out equal, upper, open parentheses, click our cell, press Enter, drag it down. We can check that one off the list. Our zip codes look pretty good, so we can move on and talk about the phone numbers. And if we study them, we can tell that some people did not include the phone number for obvious reasons. Well, here's a key point. Whenever you work with a list in Excel, it's a good idea to not have any blanks. So let's fix this by using a cool little trick. What we'll do is we'll select our phone numbers, then press the F5 key, choose Special, Blanks, and our blanks will become highlighted. Now from here, we can type in some text. Let's go with Not Provided. And to fill in all the blanks, if we press Control Enter, that'll force the text that we typed into all those blank cells. How cool is that? Okay, so far so good, although we are not done yet. Whenever you clean text, there may be points in time when you want to work with just pure text. Put another way, in this example, we used functions to clean the list. And moving forward, we don't need the functions, we just want the data. So that begs the question, how do we clean up our cleanup? Put another way, how can we get rid of all the functions that we used and walk away with just the text? One way to do this is to do a copy and then paste over our functions by doing a paste, paste special, paste values, which will replace those functions with the function results, leaving us with just pure data in the end. Let's give it a go. If you happen to recall, we used the trim function to clean up our addresses. So to get just the plain data, we can go up here and select our addresses. We can then copy them, And from here, we can do a paste, paste special, paste values, which will replace our formulas with the text. From here, we can delete that column since we don't need it if we choose. And now it's just a matter of rinse and repeat. We can select the cities in the city fixed column, copy those, jump right next door, do a paste, paste special, paste values to replace that, delete the city fixed column, and then do the same thing with our state fixed column. And there we go. So as we wind this down, it's a good idea to take a moment and always review your work. And if we take a moment and review our list, you can see that we have a few last names that did not cooperate. Now, obviously, we would need to fix this, yet there is no need to rehash it because we showed you various methods to accomplish this earlier. Let's draw the line here, and we'll see you in the next lesson. Okay, in this lesson, we will take a look at time and dates in Excel. Now, before we get too into doing date and time calculations, it's important to understand the way Excel works with and stores time and dates. And yes, I'll fully acknowledge that odds are in real life you will not have to get too deep with this, yet it's still going to be important to know for possible future reference. Let's start with dates. In Excel, dates are stored as serial numbers. Put another way, Excel presents the date to us in a way we can understand. Behind the scenes, it stores the date in a way that Excel can understand. And the way Excel stores those numbers allows us to use them in calculations. Let's take a look to illustrate this. Here we have two columns of the exact same date, and on one side, it's been labeled date in our world, and on the other side, it's labeled date in Excel's world. So if we want to see the actual serial number behind the scenes, we can jump over here to the column called date in Excel's world, select those dates, then go over here to where it says clear formats. The date will disappear, and we'll be left with a bunch of goofy numbers. These goofy numbers are the date in Excel. Put a different way, August 31st of 2005 in our world was 38,595 in Excel's world. Now, just to clarify where all this comes from, please recognize that day 1 in the computer is January 1st, 1900. And we can prove that by looking down here. You'll see the numbers 1, 2, and 3 in two separate columns. So if we take the numbers on the left-hand side and apply a date format to those, you will see they come back reading January 1st, January 2nd, and January 3rd of 1900. Put a different way, if you look up here, as of January 1st of 2023, 44,927 days have passed since January 1st of 1900. Yeah, think about that for a little while. All right, let's move on and talk about time. When you work with time in Excel, the way time is stored is as a percentage. Phrased differently and going one level deeper, as the day moves on, a certain percentage of time has passed. Now that definitely sounds a little weird, so let's clarify that by way of illustration. Over here, we have two columns, both showing identical times. The one on the left is labeled time in our world. The one on the right is labeled time in Excel's world. So if we want to explore that percentage of the day that has passed concept, if we go up here and clear our formats, we'll notice that we are left with a bunch of goofy decimals. Now these decimals are showing you the percentage of the day that has passed with the given time. Put another way, at 9 o'clock in the morning, 37.5% of the day has passed. At 12 p.m., 50% of the day has passed. At 9 p.m. in the evening, 87.5% of the day has passed. And at 11:59 p.m., 99.9% of the day has passed. So on a finer note, whenever you are working with time in Excel, you want to make sure Excel recognizes the numbers you've typed as time. The way you do that is to make sure you put a space in between the time and typing AM or PM. If you do not put a space in there, Excel will not recognize what you typed as time. Let's see a quick illustration. So if we jump down here to a random cell and type out 12:15 p.m. and make sure to include the space, Excel will recognize it as time. By contrast, if we click into a different cell and type out 12:15 p.m. with no space, you can see that Excel did not recognize this as time. So that is something very important to keep in mind whenever you work with time. To wrap up this lesson, the big takeaway is the following. Whenever you work with dates or time in Excel, even though it may be displayed as a date or a time, behind the scenes, it's actually a number. Once you get that concept under your belt, date and time calculations get a lot easier. Now that we understand how times and dates are stored in Excel, let's start doing some calculations. The good news is they're pretty straightforward. Here we have a list of our employees, the date they took an exam, the number of days until their next exam, and we want to know what is the due date. To do this, all we have to do is take the test date and add it to the days until the next exam. It's very simple. Here we go. Type equal, click on the test date, type a plus sign, click on the number of days until the next exam, press enter. From here we can drag it down, and that's it. Moving on, let's say the employees have to take a recertification exam X number of months after the test date. To solve this, we can use a special function called the EDATE. The EDATE will add a specified number of months to a date. The cool thing is it's super simple to use. Let's see it in action. We'll type equal EDATE, open parentheses, click on the test date, type a comma, click on the number of months until the recertification exam, press enter, and there we go. And that'll do it for this segment. We'll see you in the next lesson. Moving on, let's take a look at the text function. The text function will allow us to display a number as text. Granted, there is a lot of flexibility and a lot of things you can do with it. In this case, let's keep it simple. In our case, we want to see the month in which the test was taken. We can do this by typing out equal, text, open parentheses, click the date, type a comma, open quote, type M 3 times, close quote, close paren, and there we go. And just so you are aware, when we typed the 3 M's, it'll display the month in an abbreviated manner. On a similar note, we can leverage the text function to show us the day of the week the test was taken. So we'll click here and type equal, text, open parentheses, click on our date, type a comma, do an open quote, and this time we'll type out 4 D's, close quote, close paren, and this time we will get the full day of the week displayed. And therein lies the difference. If you type in 3 M's or 3 D's, you will get the abbreviated display. If you type out 4 M's or 4 D's, you will get the full display of the month or the day of the week. Okay, moving on, let's take a look at how to add some years to an existing date. And we'll take a look at 2 ways of doing this. Let's start off looking at the EDATE. In a previous lesson, we showed you how the EDATE function would add months to a date. We can build on that by modifying the number of months the EDATE function calculates. So by way of example, here we have some test dates and we want to know when 3 years from that date's going to be. We can go up here and type out equal EDATE, open parentheses, click on our year, type a comma, and here we have 2 choices. We could type out 3 times 12 or the number 36 because they're both equal to 3 years. No matter what choice we make, once we're done, press enter, and there's 3 years from the day. And the other option is to use the date function. Now, granted, this may be a little obscure, kind of awkward, and frankly, it's sort of old school. Yet the reason we've chosen to include this is just in the case you cross paths with it in a previous spreadsheet that's been around for a couple years. We want you to be familiar with it. Let's take a look. The way the date function officially works is you feed it a year, a month, and a date, and it will combine all 3 of those to create a valid date, which admittedly is kind of weird. In this case, we're going to flip it around. We're going to take the date function and have it break a date into 3 separate pieces, year, month, and day, and then add 3 years to the year. Let's take a look. We'll type equal date, open parentheses, type year, do an open paren, click our cell, do a close parentheses, type a comma, followed by the word month, open parentheses, click on that date again, close parentheses, type a comma, type the word day, open parentheses, click on the date one more time, close out the parentheses, press enter. Now, if we got this right, we should see the exact same date. And now to finish this off, here comes the awkward part. We have to go up here and click where the year value ends and then add 3. We'll type +3, press enter, and that'll give us 3 years from that date. Again, very clunky, not very efficient, yet that's the old school way of doing things. Hope that's made some sense to you, and we'll see you in the next lesson. Another powerful date calculation that we can use is something called the DATEDIF. Now, what exactly does the DATEDIF do? Well, it will look at two dates and show you the difference in either years, months, or days, depending on what you want. Now, the really odd thing is, for some reason, it's a hidden or undocumented function, meaning if you would go up and click on the FX icon, you would not find DATEDIF in there anywhere. Yeah, I don't get it either. So unfortunately, in this case, we got to type it out longhand, and fortunately, it's not that bad. Let's take a look. Here we have a list of our old employees, the dates they were hired, the dates they left the company, and let's just say we want to see the duration in years. So we'll go up here and type out equal DATEDIF, open parentheses, click on our starting date, type a comma, click on the end date, type a comma, then do an open quote, letter Y, close quote, close parentheses, press enter, and there is our duration in years. Now, when we use the DATEDIF, we have a couple choices. We can either show things in total years, total months, or total days. So if we use Y, that'll show us total years. If we use M, that'll show us total months. If we use D, that'll show us total days. And that's all you need to know. The biggest question is, which one do you want to use in real life? And that'll do it for the DATEDIF. Okay, let's talk about time calculations in Excel. For most people, when they work with time in Excel, they want to figure out the time in between, the time spent, or the duration. And yes, I will fully recognize there's a whole school of thought as to which method is best with keeping time in Excel, meaning, do you use military time? Do you use standard time? The various ways of calculating time? I get it. The goal here is just to keep it simple to convey the concepts. That said, let's take a look at our example. Here we have our employees, the start time and the end time, and we want to figure out the total amount of hours. To solve this, it's just a matter of simple subtraction. What we'll do is we'll type out equal, click on our end time, minus our start time. Now here's where most people get hung up. They can tell the duration is correct, but they're confused as to why the number is being displayed as an official time, which leads us to a big point. Oftentimes when you work with time in Excel, if something is not displayed properly, it's usually a matter of improper formatting. So what we'll do is we'll drag our formula down first, not going to worry about what it looks like. Then we'll go up here and click on our number format, go down to where it says custom, and then choose this one that reads H:MM. And there we go. Not too bad. Now, let's take a look at another common situation where you have to figure out hours worked minus lunchtime. So let's start by looking at our information. Here we have our employees, the time in, the time the lunch started, the time lunch ended, the time out, and we obviously want to figure out the hours worked. To solve this, it's a little funky, but it works. The way it's done is you subtract out your end time from your starting time, then subtract out the lunch ending time from the lunch start time. Yeah, not confusing at all, right? It'll be easier when you see it. Let's take a look. Let's click here, type an equal sign, click our timeout, minus our time in, minus, do an open parentheses, the lunch end, minus the lunch start, close the parentheses, press enter, and that looks about right, with the exception of the formatting issue. So let's drag this down. Don't worry about what it looks like. Go up here, apply our custom time format, and there we go. All right, not too bad. Okay, let's take a look at this ceiling function. What exactly is the ceiling function? Well, technically the ceiling function rounds a number up to a given multiple. The cool thing is the ceiling function understands time as well, of which we'll see here in a few moments. For now, the big takeaway is to recognize the ceiling function always rounds up. In this example, here we have our employees, the time they spent on a project, and the boss wants to see these durations rounded up to the next 15 minutes, just to get a rough idea of how long they spent on the project. And you guessed it, we'll use the ceiling function to do it. Let's type out equal, ceiling, open parentheses, click on our time, type a comma, open quote, 0:15, close quote, close paren, press enter, and right there is the next 15-minute increment. From here, just copy the formula down, and right there you have it. Closely related to the ceiling function is the MROUND function. The MROUND function will round a number up or down to the nearest multiple. In our case, we'll have the MROUND round up or down to the nearest time we designate. Let's see our example. Here we have our employees, the time they spent on a project, and the boss wants to see these durations displayed to the closest 15 minutes, which means the time spent could be rounded up or down depending on the duration provided. Let's take a look. To solve this, type equal MROUND, open parentheses, click on our time, type a comma, open quote, 0:15, close quote, close paren. Excel will look at that duration and show us the nearest 15-minute increment. Let's conclude this module by looking at some various ways to quickly add the current date or current time to our spreadsheet. Method 1 is to type out equal now, open parentheses, close parentheses. Excel will show you the current date and time. Method 2 is to type out equal today, open paren, close paren, and that will show you just today's date. The important thing to note here is that these are both functions, meaning every time you open your spreadsheet, they will refresh to reflect the current time and current date. And the last one is to press Control semicolon. If you do that, it will insert today's date, but that date will be static and it will not change every time you open up your file. And that will officially end this lesson. We'll see you in the next one. Okay, and welcome to this portion of the course. In this lesson, we're going to take some time to study large lists or large sets of data, depending on how you interpret that. Throughout this section, we'll take a look at such things as sorts, filters, freeze panes, subtotals, as well as some cool gimmicks along the way. Let's start off by discussing a common issue people have when navigating through a large list. A common issue people have is when they scroll through a list, the column headings disappear. And that creates a lot of disorientation, a lot of frustration, and we can fix that by using something called the freeze panes. The freeze panes will lock or freeze a portion of your screen in place. So when you scroll, it won't move. Freeze panes are very easy to use. There's only one thing to keep in mind, and that is whenever you turn on your freeze panes, it is always going to freeze whatever is above and to the left of the active cell. Let's see a very quick yet very impractical illustration of how this works. Here we have our list, and please note where the active cell is. Now, to turn on the freeze panes, we can go up here and click on View, Freeze Panes. And when we turn that on, you'll notice that a little thin line appears to the left and above the active cell. And when we start scrolling, everything above that line stays in place. And if we move to the right, everything to the left of that line will stay frozen. So the big takeaway is to think about where the active cell is before you turn on the freeze panes. Let's see an illustration of that. First, let's turn off our freeze panes by going up here and clicking on View, Freeze Panes, Unfreeze Panes. And let's think this through. Let's say we want to freeze our column headings along with our order IDs. So in order to do that, we have to think left and above. And it stands to reason that this cell right here is going to be the best one to use. So if we go up and click on View, Freeze Panes, and turn them on again, now if we scroll down, our column headings will stay in place. And if we move to the right, our order IDs will not move. And that's how you use the freeze panes. All right, in this lesson, we will take some time and study sorting. Before we get into things, I'd like to take a moment and recommend that you pause the video just to familiarize yourself with the list, since it'll make the concepts that we cover a lot easier to digest. That said, let's get right into it. So what exactly is sorting? Sorting is when you want to rearrange your list either alphabetically, numerically, or in a particular way in which you want to see it. Basically, you're just reorganizing it. So as we just mentioned, we'll assume you took a few moments to study the list, and here we have our order IDs, product categories, subcategories, regions, countries, sources, etc. And let's say we want to do some sorting. So at the risk of dragging things out a little bit, whenever you work with a list, it's a really good idea to take your column headings and make them bold. And you're doing that for two reasons. First, it allows you to distinguish your column headings from the body of your list. It simply makes it easier to read. Second, and most important, behind the scenes, you're creating what's called a field. And when you sort, fields will not be included. Put another way, when we take these column headings and make them bold, Excel will not include them in the sort, which, if you think about it, is something we don't want. Bottom line, if all this sounds too technical, here's all you have to do. Whenever you work with a list, take your column headings and make them bold. The vast majority of any headaches has just gone out the window. Okay, now that we have all that nonsense out of the way, let's talk about how to do sorting. And yes, granted, there is a whole myriad of ways to do sorting in Excel. What we're going to do here is just touch on the most common ways of doing it. We'll go through a progression of things. We'll start off doing very simple, basic sorts, and then move into doing sorts on multiple levels. Let's start with the quick sort. So what exactly is the quick sort? Well, it's just that. The whole idea is you click inside the column you want to sort by, do a quick sort, and voila, instant sort. Let's say, for example, we want to sort by our country. So the most important thing when it comes to sorting is to click inside the column that you want to sort by. So click in the country column, and then we'll go up here and click on the data tab. Look for where it says quick sort, which is the A to Z icon with a down pointing arrow. Click that, and voila, instant sort. Alternatively, you can also quick sort by hovering inside the column that you want to sort by. Let's give that a test drive by going over here to our subcategory. Then do a right click, go down to where it says sort, and choose sort A to Z, and sort's done. And that'll do it for the quick sort. Moving on, let's say we want to sort our list by multiple levels. For example, maybe we want to sort our list by category, then by subcategory. To do multiple level sorting, we want to go up and click on our data tab and then look for the sort icon, which is this one right here. And now here is where making those column headings bold works to our advantage, because all we have to do is just choose the column or field name that we want to use. So we'll choose the product category here, click add level, then choose the product subcategory, click OK, and voila, our list has been sorted by 2 levels. Just for kicks and grins, let's do another example and throw in a finer point along the way. Let's say we want to sort our list by region and then by country. So if we wanted, we could do a right click, choose sort, custom sort. We get the exact same dialog box we just saw a moment ago. And now here comes the finer point. If we did not make those column headings bold, where it says sort by, it would read column A, column B, column C, column D. The reason it says that is because Excel could not distinguish the column headings versus the body of the list. Sure, we could click the checkbox where it says my data has header rows, but arguably it's an extra step, so why bother? So getting back on track, we'll choose region, add level, then country, click OK, and there we go. So let's wrap this up by doing a quick review. If we click data, sort, from here it's just a matter of choosing our sort order by what we select from the drop-down arrows, and we will see you in the next lesson. Moving on, let's say the boss wants to see the countries in our list in a non-alphabetical order. As to why, who knows? Yet to accomplish this, we can get it done by using a custom sort. First, let's do a right-click in our list, and then choose Sort, Custom Sort, and then where it says Sort By, choose Country, and then over here on the right-hand side where it says A to Z, click the drop arrow and choose Custom List. And from here, click in the right-hand column, and then the part that stinks is we have to type out our list. In this case, the way the boss wants our country sorted. Let's say it's something like this. Make sure to click Add, then choose OK, and check out that magic. List has been sorted the way we want it. Moving on, let's take a look at another way to sort, which is sorting by color. Just so you are aware, prior to recording this video, I took a moment and applied some cell shading at random just for demonstration purposes. If you wish to follow along, please feel free to do the same. Getting back on point, there are a few ways to achieve this. In this case, we'll go up and click where it says Data, Sort, and where it says Sort By. We're not going to worry about that. Rather, we'll focus on the middle column where it says Cell Values. Click the drop arrow, and from there you'll see Cell Color. Choose Cell Color. From there, if you move to the right, you can click the drop arrow and choose the color you want to sort by. And then if you want to do multiple sorts by color, just click Add Level and do a rinse and repeat. And there you go. And let's wrap up this lesson by talking about a common problem that people have, which is getting your list back to its original state. Put another way, what people will do is they will do sort on top of sort on top of sort, and then they want to get their list back to the way it was when they first started using it. Probably the best way to solve this is to use what's called a helper column. A helper column is just a bunch of generic numbers that you can add to your list prior to doing any sorting. So in this case, you see the helper column right here with a bunch of numbers. So the idea is we can go in here and sort to our heart's delight. And if we want to get our list back to the original state, jump into the helper column, do a quick sort, and you're right back to where you started. Okay, in this lesson, we'll take some time to study how to do filtering. By chance you have not been following along, we recommend you take a moment and pause the video just to familiarize yourself with the list, and feel free to join in when you're ready. So what exactly is filtering? Simply put, filtering is a way for you to view just a specific portion of your list. Put another way, by chance you know that card game called Go Fish, it's roughly the same. What you're really doing with filtering is saying, give me all your fill in the blank. Just like we covered in the sorting lesson, whenever you want to do filtering, you want to make sure that your column headings are in bold, so Excel knows the column headings from the body of your list and will not include them when you do your filters. So just like everything else in Excel, there is a whole myriad of ways to do filtering. The goal here is just to show you the most commonly used methods. So let's turn on our filter first and then do some actual filtering. So to turn on our filter, step 1, we want to make sure we are in the body of the list. Step 2, go up and click where it says Data, and then click the funnel icon where it says Filter, and we'll see some drop-down arrows appear at the top of our list where the field headings or column names are. And from here, it's very straightforward. All we have to do is just click on the drop arrow and go fishing for what we want. In this case, let's say we want to see a specific country. So we can go up here and click the drop arrow where it says Country, uncheck Select All, and then check the country we want to filter. Click OK, and there is our filtered list. Moving on, if we want to reset ourselves and see the entire list, we have a couple choices. We can go up and click on the drop arrow and choose Clear Filter, or we can check the box where it says Select All and then click OK. The choice is yours. And now from this point, it's just a combination of what we want to see. So for example, if we want to see 2 countries, we can click the drop arrow, uncheck Select All, check off the countries we want to see, click OK, and there we go. Now let's clear this filter and move on. If we wanted to, we could filter across multiple columns. So let's go up here and click the drop arrow where it says Country, pick one, then jump over to Customer Source, pick one, and now we have a more refined filter. Moving on, we can also filter by numbers if we want. Let's go over here and click a number column, go down to where it says Number Filters, and we can see all the choices that we have. In this case, let's say we want to see all of our profits between 75 and 100, so we can make that selection here. Then we can type out the values we want to see. Click OK, and there's the numbers between 75 and 100. Very straightforward. Let's clear that and move on. Since we're talking about filtering numbers, another cool thing we can do is click the drop arrow here, go down to where it says Number Filters, and then look for where it says Top 10. We can make our choice between top or bottom. In the middle, we can change the number. And then over here on the right, we can choose between items or percent. In this case, we'll leave things as is. Click OK. And right there's the top 10 items. Let's clear that out and move on. For this next demo, I applied some shading to some cells to demonstrate a specific filtering feature. By chance you ever work with a list and some of your cells are shaded, you can actually filter them out. The way you do that is it does not matter which column heading you choose. Simply click the drop arrow of your choice. You'll then see Filter by Color. From there, pick the color you want to filter by, and there you go. Once you're done using the filter, you can turn it off by clicking on the filter icon. And we'll conclude this lesson with this tip. Another way to filter is to right-click in the column that you want to sort by, then go down to where it says Filter and make the selection that you want. And that will conclude this lesson. Okay, in this lesson, we'll take a look at the advanced filter. So what exactly is the advanced filter? To understand why you'd want to use the advanced filter, you need to first understand that the basic filter has some limitations. Put another way, sometimes you want to see very specific results, and the standard filter just will not cut it. Let's take a moment and look at this limitation in action. Here we have our list, and let's say we want to see very specific things. We want to get very specific. We want to see the orders from Japan with the customer source of YouTube, along with the United States and the customer source of the opt-in page. So if we do a standard filter, let's see what we get. So we'll turn the filter on and then filter out Japan and the United States. Then go over here to customer source and filter out YouTube and opt-in page. And let's take a look. Okay, at first glance, it seems like it's kind of working, but not quite. Upon further inspection, you'll notice that we did not quite get what we wanted. And let's sort it just so we can see it. Remember, we wanted to see very specific things. It had to be Japan and YouTube, United States, and opt-in page. But if you look at our data set, we got what? Japan, YouTube, and opt-in page, USA, opt-in page, and YouTube. So we didn't quite get refined enough. So this is the limitation of the standard filter and where the advanced filter comes into play. Let's reset our list and turn the filter off and delve into the advanced filter. Whenever you work with the advanced filter, there's a few things you need to know up front. First, you need to make an area to build it since you have to type in what you're looking for. And second, you want to take your column headings or field names and copy and paste them so Excel can use them. And the best bet is to put the area above your list like we did here, just because it makes things a lot easier. The next thing with the advanced filter is to recognize you are going to be working with the dreaded and/or condition. We covered the and/or in a previous lesson, but in case you didn't quite catch that, let's get a real quick summary. Starting with the and condition. The easiest way to think about an and condition is they are the following. An and condition is everything or nothing at all. Put another way, whenever you build an and condition, everything you want has to be there. If not, it does not meet the criteria. Let's look at a real quick example. Let's say yours truly hits the lottery and has enough money to buy a very expensive sports car. If I go to the dealership and give them a list of everything that I want, if they don't have a car that meets all those specifications, I'm not interested. Why? Because I said the car has to have this and this and this and this and this. If it doesn't have everything, I'm not interested. It does not meet the criteria. Point being, and conditions are restrictive. They are everything or nothing at all, and wind up offering you a very narrow candidate pool. By contrast, or conditions open up. Let's continue with that analogy. If I go to buy my expensive sports car and I say, here is what I'm looking for, they could come back and say, well, we don't have everything, but we can offer you this or this or this instead. Point being, whenever you work with or conditions, they open up, they give you more options. They broaden what you're looking for. So while you're getting your mind around that, here is another thing to consider with the advanced filter. And conditions go on a horizontal, or conditions go on a vertical. Yeah, isn't that lots of fun? So why is that even being mentioned? Well, remember, whenever you work with advanced filters, you have to type in your criteria. If you don't type in what you're looking for correctly, it's not going to work. Going back to our example, remember, we want to see specifically Japan, YouTube, United States, opt-in page. So let's keep going. We'll go up here and type out our criteria because that is the next step in this process. So where it says country, I'll type Japan, then jump right next door to where it says customer source and type out YouTube. So just to clarify, when we type this, this is an and condition. Why? Because it's on a horizontal. So really the way you read it is I want to see Japan and YouTube. If I jump down a line and go to where it says country and type out United States, then go right next door and type out opt-in, this is another and condition. Why? Because it's read United States and opt-in page. So really what we have here is two and conditions. And as a bonus, there's an or in there. Here's the way you technically read it. I want to see Japan and YouTube or United States and opt-in page. Now granted, that sounds ridiculously confusing. So let's clarify it. Here's a little trick I picked up. Whenever you work with an or statement, it's a good idea to do substitution. If you substitute or for the phrase along with, it sounds a lot easier to conceptualize. So let's read this again. What we want to see is Japan and YouTube along with United States and opt-in page. The other thing you want to know is that AND conditions always supersede OR conditions. So whenever you read this, you want to read the horizontal content first, and if you have to move down a row, that becomes the OR condition. Yes, take a moment and think about it because it does take a while to process this. Okay, and after all that long-winded explanation, it is finally time to build the advanced filter. Let's do this. So we typed our criteria above. Now we click inside the body of our list, then go up and click on the advanced icon. In this prompt, our list should become highlighted, which is good. Now we'll click down where it says criteria range, and we want to select specifically this area right here. Click OK, and let's see our results. Looks like we have Japan, YouTube, USA, opt-in page. All right, it worked. Yes, long, arduous, and tedious, and no fun. Yet, if you want to get very specific criteria from your list, that's the game you gotta play. And that'll do it for the advanced filter. All right, in this lesson, we will learn how to work with a subtotal. Before we get into that, let's define what exactly is a subtotal. In a nutshell, by definition, a subtotal is when you add up a certain portion of your data or certain segments of your data. So when you work with subtotals in Excel, what they do is allow you to insert or inject calculations within the body of your list. Put another way, you're simply doing calculations at certain breakpoints in your list. The key to making subtotals work is you have to sort the field you want to use first. That is critical. So let's say we want to get a subtotal for all the profits for the countries in our list. So the first thing we have to do is sort by our country. Then on the Data tab, on the far right-hand side, we'll see Subtotal. We'll click that. Where it says At Each Change In, we'll switch that to Country because that's what we just sorted. Where it says Use Function, we'll leave that alone because we want to add things up. And where it says Add Subtotal To, we'll leave it as Profit because that's what we want to see. Click OK. Let's see what Excel gave us. As we scroll through the list, you'll notice that at certain breakpoints, meaning when we go from one country to the other, Excel has added a subtotal for those specific profits. As a bonus, if we look up here in the upper left-hand corner, we'll see a little 1, 2, and 3. If we click on those, that will allow us to expand and collapse our list. If we click on the plus sign, that will allow us to expand out a certain portion of our list. Clicking the minus sign will collapse that portion of the list. And we'll click the number 3 here just to see everything. Moving on, let's say we want to see a different type of calculation within our list. If we go back and click the subtotal icon, where it says Use Function, let's click the drop arrow and choose Average in this case, and then click OK. Now, as we scroll through the list, we'll see the average profit for that country. Moving on, if we want to remove our subtotals, we'll go back and click the subtotal icon, then click Remove All, and that will reset our list and bring us back to square one. Going one step further, what if we want to apply different calculations to different fields? For instance, what if we want to see the average profit and total sales for each of our countries? How do we do that? The answer is you have to jump through a couple hoops, but it'll work. First, let's verify that we are sorted by country. And to solve this, we have to apply 2 consecutive subtotals. Put differently, we're going to apply one subtotal, then go right back and apply another one. Let's go up and click the subtotal icon. It says At Each Change in Country, so we're good there. Where it says Use Function, let's click the drop arrow and change it to Average. And we want to see the average profit, so profit looks good. Click OK. That's part 1. Part 2, go right back up and click the subtotal icon again. Let's click the drop arrow and change it from Average to Sum. Then go down here and check where it says Sales Amount, and then uncheck Profit because we don't need that. And then where the magic happens is right here. This box where it reads Replace Current Subtotals. We want to uncheck that. And when we uncheck that, that allows us to put in more than one subtotal in our list. Let's click OK. And oh man, check that out. As we scroll through our list, you notice that Excel has put in our subtotals for total sales and the average profit for each change in country. Pretty cool. Let's go up and clear out our subtotals, and we'll do one more for sake of illustration. Let's say we want to see the total sales for our countries and then the average profit from our customer source. How in the world do we do that? The key to doing this relies on sorting our list properly first. So we'll go up here and sort our list by country, then by customer source. And then from here, it's just a matter of applying our subtotals. We'll click subtotal, and then where it says at each change in, switch it to country, and we'll show the total sales. And once we're done that, we go right back and click on subtotal again, where it says at each change in, switch it to customer source, then change it to average, and then make sure just profit is checked. Click OK, and let's check the results. Ah, pretty cool. Check that out. And there you have it for your subtotals. Since we've been talking about lists for so long, now is as good a time as any to talk about some new functions. In this segment, we'll take a look at the sort, filter, and unique functions. Let's start off with the sort function. So what exactly does the sort function do? Well, in a nutshell, the sort function allows you to select your data and put a sorted copy somewhere else. Put another way, it allows you to pre-sort your data. Let's see an example to clarify this, and we'll do a couple combinations just to clarify everything. We'll start off by typing things out. So here's our list. We have our country, quantity sold, unit price, and sales amount. And let's just do a basic generic sort function. So we'll click here and type out equal, sort, open paren, select our range, press enter. And the key thing to notice is that by default, the sort function will sort the far left-hand side, in this case the country, alphabetically A to Z. Let's take this example one step further and say that we want to sort by our sales amount. So to accomplish this, we have to tell Excel what column we want to sort by, and the way we do that is to count over from the left. So in this case, we'll use the FX icon. So we'll go up here and click FX, do a search for sort. Next, we'll select our range. Where it says sort index, the column we want, in this case, is the sales amount. So let's count over 1, 2, 3, 4. Where it says sort order, we can have it be ascending or descending. In this case, we'll leave it as is. Click OK, and there you go. At this point, you're probably wondering why in the world would you even want to do this in the first place? Well, the answer is that you want to use the sort function so you can take a portion of your data and not disturb the original list. Next, let's talk about the filter function. The filter function allows you to extract a portion of your list and place that portion you've extracted somewhere else. The idea being you don't want to touch your original data. In this example, let's say we want to filter our list and just see the country of the United Kingdom. So we'll click the FX icon, do a search for filter, and where it says array, let's select the entire list. Where it says include, we'll select our country column. We'll then type an equal sign, and then click this cell right here where it says UK, press enter, and there is our filter list. Now the cool thing is this is dynamic. If we were to change the country to something else, Excel will filter out what we typed in. And right there is your filter function. And let's wrap this lesson up with a real quick demo of the unique function. What exactly is the unique function? The unique function will do what the name implies. It will look at your list and return the unique values that it finds. So for this example, let's say the boss wants to see all the unique countries from our list. So we'll type equal, unique, open parentheses, select our country list, press enter, and there are all the unique entries. In full disclosure, this function can be built out a little further. There are a few more things that it can do, but for the sake of brevity and convenience, we'll draw the line here. Okay, in this lesson, we'll take a look at how to work with tables. Just so you are aware, tables have been around since roughly 2007 and have really started to gain some traction over the past few years. Now, to be candid, some people are very pro tables, others not so much. When you first start working with tables, you might feel like, meh, big deal. But once you start working with such things as pivot tables and having to connect multiple lists together, you'll find out that tables are very useful. So let's start at square one and explain what exactly are tables. Well, on a very fundamental level, tables combine or roll up freeze panes, sorts, filters, adding new calculations, and rows of data all into one package. Think of it as like a fancy one-stop shop. Let's create a table and you'll see all the stuff come together. To create our table, let's click inside the list, then go up and click on Insert, Table. With this prompt, we'll click OK. So right here is our table. Maybe a little hard on the eyes, we can fix that, but for right now, let's take a look at a few things. If you're familiar with sorting, we can click the drop arrow here and then choose Sort A to Z, and that column will become sorted. By chance you're not familiar with sorting, sorting is nothing more than alphabetizing your list. The other thing we can do from this drop arrow is filter our list. So if you're familiar with filtering, you know what to do. If not, filtering is nothing more than saying, I want to see a portion of my list. So click the drop arrow at the top of the column and then go right down here and you can check and uncheck the pieces you want to see. Next, another cool feature with tables is that when you scroll down, Excel will always keep your column headings visible. And that's cool because it alleviates a lot of aggravation when you scroll through big lists. Next, let's talk about the formatting of your table. If you want to change the way it looks, we can click Table Design, and then over here where it says Table Style, we can click the drop arrow, let our mouse glide over the choices, and we can pick the one we want. For this demo, I'll leave the default as is. Now, here's where the cool stuff comes into play. Let's say we have to add some calculations to our table. Perhaps we have to multiply the quantity sold by the unit price. We can start off by typing our new field name. Let's call it sales. Once we press the Enter key, you notice that Excel will adapt the new field to the table, which is pretty cool. From here, we can build our formula and do something like this. We can type out equal, click on our quantity, multiply that by our unit price. Then when we press Enter, you'll notice that Excel will automatically copy down the formula. How cool is that? Major time saver. And we can keep going. Let's say we want to add another field called profit. We can type our field name. Excel will automatically add that field to our table. Then we can build our formula by typing out equal, click our sales, minus our expenses. And just a quick finer point, tables use something called a structured reference, which is really a fancy way of saying Excel will show you the field names as opposed to the cell references in your formula. From here, we'll press Enter, and oh my gosh, look at that. Next, going with the theme of calculations, there's an option called Total Row. You can see it right here. When you check this box, Excel will add a new row to the end of your table, and when you click in that row, you'll see little drop arrows. Those little drop arrows will give you access to different types of calculations, and from here, it's just a matter of picking and choosing the type of calculation that you want to use. For example, here is the sum of our profits and the average sales. If we go up and uncheck Total Row, that will remove it. If we click in the lower right-hand corner of our table and press our Tab key, it will give us a new row. We can type in brand new data if we wanted to. Moving on, let's talk about something called a slicer. Think of the slicer as being a filter 2.0. The slicer behaves the exact same way as a filter. It is just a lot easier to use. Let's take a look. Up here, we'll click on Insert Slicer, and that will give us a list of our fields. Let's keep it simple and choose Country. Click OK. Let's resize it if we need to. And from here, it's just a matter of clicking on the buttons for the country that we want to see. If we want to clear things out and bring everything back, just click the funnel icon with the red X on it, and that will reset our list. By chance, we want to see multiple countries. If we hold down the Control key while we click on the buttons, Excel will then show us the multiple countries that we've selected. Going one step further, we can add multiple slicers if we wanted to. So we can go up here and click on Table Design, Insert Slicer, and let's choose Customer Source. And we are off to the races. Just click on different combinations of buttons to your heart's delight. If you want to get rid of a slicer, just click on it and press your Delete key, and that will remove it. Moving on, let's talk about how to rename a table. On the surface, this may seem a little impractical, yet as you move forward with your Excel career, you'll find out it's a very common practice, and it comes in very handy when you have to connect more than one list or table together. To change the table name, First, click in the table. Then, in the upper left-hand corner, where it reads Table Name, you can click up there and type in your name. Just a few quick finer points. Number 1, table names cannot have spaces, so you can use an underscore as a substitute. And then number 2, if you have multiple tables in your spreadsheet, it's a good idea to give the tables unique names. And to wrap up this lesson, let's talk about how to remove a table. If you ever want to get rid of your table, first click inside your table, and then up here it reads Convert to Range. That's just code for Remove My Table. When we click that, Excel will come back and ask us, just click Yes, and now we're back to normal. The only drawback is the residual formatting. If we'd want to clear that, we'd have to select everything, and then go to the Home tab, and choose Clear Formats, and then maybe reformat a few things. But else, that should be enough to get you through tables, and we will see you in the next lesson. Okay, it is time to talk about pivot tables. So what exactly are pivot tables? Well, before we answer that question, let's ask a broader question, which is, why would you use a pivot table in the first place? Well, the answer is you often have a large list of data, and you have to answer very complicated questions. Let's start by looking at our list, and here we have a list of our orders, and each line item represents a separate order that we've received. And the details that we track are the order ID, the product category, the product subcategory, the geographic region, the country within that region, the customer source, which is how the person found us, our expenses for that order, the quantity sold, the unit price, sales amount, and profit. And let's say the boss starts asking some questions. For example, what was our average sale per country? Which customer source was the most profitable? What was the total sales of each subcategory broken down by region? You can see these questions become a little complicated to answer. Enter the pivot table. So what exactly is a pivot table? Well, frankly, pivot tables are very hard to describe. It's only when you see them will you understand them. For right now, think of a pivot table as being a display or arrangement of your data. Put another way, with a pivot table, all you do is create various displays of it. If we put our focus on the word pivot, pivot by definition means what? Swivel, twist, rotate, move around, etc. So in a nutshell, a pivot table is a way for you to create an arrangement of your data, and then what you can do is move it around to create a brand new arrangement of your data. Along the way, you can do some really cool calculations, and the complexity of the arrangement is really up to you. Again, when you see it, it will make much more sense. When it comes to creating your pivot table, there are various ways and various schools of thought in which you can create one, and we'll address those methods at the end of this lesson. For right now, let's get going. Step 1 is you want to click inside your list. Step 2, click where it says Insert, and then choose Pivot Table. Here, we'll just accept the defaults and put our pivot table on a new worksheet. Click OK. Now, if you're new to pivot tables, you're probably looking at the left-hand side of the screen. You're better off putting your focus on the right-hand side, where you see this little pane. This pane has two sections. The top section shows you the column headings from your list, otherwise known as field names. And then the most important part is these quadrants right down here. These little 4 quadrants is where all the magic happens. To build your pivot table, all you do is drag the field that you want to see into the quadrant you want. Generally speaking, the fields that you drag into the row and column quadrants are often text-based. Where it says values, the fields you put in there are numerical, or a field you want to do a calculation on. So to start off, let's say the boss wants to see our total sales for each country. So we'll drag the country field down to where it says rows. We'll then drag the sales amount to where it says values. Now, if we look on the left-hand side, behold, a pivot table. So here's all that happened. When we put those fields in those quadrants, Excel went over to our list and found all of our unique countries, and then it looked at the sales amounts for each of those countries, added them up, and showed them to us. Put another way, Excel is showing us our data in the aggregate. For example, all of our UK sales add to this, all of our Scotland sales add to this, all of our Aussie sales add to this, etc. Let's go one step further and say we want to add the product category to our pivot table. To add that field, we can drag it down from our field list. Let's say we put it in our columns quadrant. There we go. And Excel has created a fancy layout of our data. by listing our countries in one direction, our categories going in another direction, and for lack of a better term, Excel is showing us our data in a fancy cross-referenced aggregate manner. Put another way, if we look at our table, we can tell we sold $1,500 of dog care products in the Philippines. So why is it called a pivot table? Well, remember, pivot by definition means move around. So if we wanted to, we could create a different arrangement of our data by moving these fields around. So let's say we take our product category and put it over here where it says rows, and we'll put the country in the column quadrant. And all we have done is simply rearranged our data and created a brand new display. And right there is the essence of a pivot table. Let's go up and clear our pivot table by choosing clear, clear all. Then we'll give you a homework assignment. At this point, we recommend you pause the video and just take some time to create various combinations of your data. Drag a field down into the row quadrant, drag a field down into the columns quadrant, just to see what you get. Create a couple different combinations, and then when you're ready, come back to join us. Okay, by now, hopefully you've taken some time and created some various combinations of your data and had a chance to play around with a few things. And to be sure that we are on the same page, make sure your pivot table is clear with no existing fields and you're essentially starting from scratch or a blank pivot table. And to set the stage for this next section, let's move our country down here and our product here and our sales amount to where it says values. And this sets the stage for our next point, which is to recognize that there are no rules that say you cannot drag multiple fields into multiple quadrants. Remember, the name of the game is creating arrangements. So the question is, what do you want that arrangement to look like? Getting back on point, to put multiple fields in multiple quadrants, all you have to do is drag a field into a different quadrant. And the subtle part that most people miss is to pay attention to where a little green line appears. This little green line will show you where the field is going to go when you let go with your mouse. So if we drag our product category field into our rows quadrant and we put that green line above country, our data is displayed product category first, then the country. By contrast, if we move it back to reset ourselves and then drag it down again, this time putting the product category underneath the country, the data is now displayed by our country first, then by our product category. So the big takeaway is this. However your fields are arranged down here in, let's say, this rows quadrant, the stacked order is how they are displayed in your pivot table. And going one step further, now the sky is the limit. You can put a whole bunch of fields in a whole bunch of quadrants and really create some cool displays. So in the interest of time, we recommend that you pause the video, start to create a whole bunch of new combinations of your pivot table, like you see us doing here, rapid fire style, putting multiple fields in multiple quadrants just to see what you come up with, and then come back to join us when you're ready. Before we get into this lesson, if you want to take a moment and create an arrangement of your data however you wish, that's fine. If you want to mimic what you see here on screen, please feel free. We'll work under the premise that you have built a pivot table to use. Next, let's take a look at how to work with sorts, filters, and slicers. If you've been working with lists for a while, you notice there is a recurring theme. And that theme is the ability to sort and filter your data. Well, guess what? You can also sort and filter your data here in your pivot tables. So we'll take a quick minute here to study how it's done. If we wanted to sort our pivot table, we can go up here, click on the drop arrow, and then choose sort A to Z or Z to A, depending on what we want. Just realize that by default, whenever you add a field to a quadrant, Excel will sort your data alphabetically. If you're into cheap gimmicks, a cool little trick you can do is rearrange your data manually. The way it works is this. You click the cell you want to move, then hover until your mouse looks like this. Then click and drag, and you can put that row wherever you want to. And let's do a quick reset here just to keep us sane. Moving on, you can also filter your pivot table. You can do that by clicking the drop arrow right here. From there, you can check the pieces that you want to see and uncheck the pieces that you do not want to see. Very straightforward, nothing too complicated. Moving on, another way we can filter is to add a field to this filters quadrant, which is something we have not talked about yet. Now, arguably, this method is becoming obsolete because there is a better way to filter, but just for the sake of thoroughness, let's take a quick peek. So let's take our customer source and drag it down here into the filters quadrant. Then, when we let go and look in the upper left-hand corner, you'll see the customer source has appeared up there. Now it's just a matter of clicking on a drop arrow, and we can filter out what we want. If we want to choose multiple items, we can select the box right here where it says select multiple items, and we can check or uncheck to our heart's delight. Even though we can do all this cool stuff, just recognize that the filter does have its limitations. So there's a much more efficient way to do filtering, and that's to use something called the slicer, which we'll see in a moment. But first, let's take a look at how to get rid of some of our fields because we have not studied that yet. So if you want to remove a field from your pivot table, what you can do is A, uncheck the box over here on the right-hand side, or B, drag the field out here into no man's land and then let go, and the field will be removed. Just be aware that when you remove a field from your pivot table, that just means it will not be displayed. So before we see the slicer, let's start clean and let's get rid of that customer source field. You can make your choice. I'll drag mine over here and let go. Now, as we mentioned earlier, time for the slicer. The slicer is really a filter 2.0. What it does is gives you little buttons that you can click on, and then when you click on those buttons, they behave the exact same way as a filter. The main advantage you have over a slicer is they are much easier to use because you're just clicking on some buttons. So let's see our slicer in action. We'll go up here and click where it says Insert Slicer, and let's choose our customer source. And now, once the slicer pops up, all we have to do is just click on our buttons. And as we've been saying, this will behave the exact same way as the filter. If we want to clear our results, we can click the funnel icon with the red X on it right here. And if we want to see multiple selections, we can hold our control key down and then click on the buttons that we want, and Excel will show us the results. For the sake of time, we won't demo this, but just know you can add in multiple slicers if you wanted to. That's all we'll cover in this section, and we'll see you in the next one. Changing gears, let's talk about how to do calculations within pivot tables. And frankly, this is a big box office draw because you can get a lot of mileage out of it. So let's make sure we start with a blank pivot table, and then we'll drag our country here, our product category here, and let's drag our sales amount right down here. For starters, recognize that whenever we drag a numeric field down here to where it says values, it's going to default to the sum. If we want to change that calculation, what we have to do is just click the drop arrow right here, and we want to look for where it says value field settings. That's just code for I want to change the calculation. So let's just choose that. And here we have a list of common functions that we'll use. To keep it simple, let's choose average. And then to make it easier on our eyes, let's click where it says number format and apply a currency format. Click OK. And right there we go. Not too bad. If we want to change the calculation to something else, let's say the max or the min, we can click the drop arrow right down here, choose value field settings, click max, and right there is our highest sale. If we slide down again and choose min, right there is our lowest sale amount. And just to build on that theme from earlier of you can add multiple fields to multiple quadrants, we can drag down a different field if we wanted to. Let's say our profit. So now we see both fields, and we can change the calculation if we wish. And let's start to wrap this lesson up. So granted, this lesson was pretty quick, and there's a lot that comes out of it. There's a lot to unpack and a lot you can do. The whole idea here is just to give you an idea or a real quick overview of how things work. Moving on, let's take some time to study how to build pivot charts, which begs the question, why would you build a chart in the first place? And here's the answer. The general concept is you take your list, you convert it into a pivot table, and then you build a chart off that pivot table just because it makes everything very legible and easy to read. So if you've been following along in this course, make sure you start from a clean pivot table, and let's go with something simple. Let's drag our region down here, our product category right here, and our sales amount into the values quadrant. To build the chart, we go up and click where it says Insert, and then go over to where it says Pivot Chart, and we'll choose a bar graph because we use it to compare categories. And there we go. From here, we can modify our chart. For example, we can click on our chart, then choose the Design tab, and play with the styles right here, change all the colors, all that kind of fun stuff. A common thing people will do is they'll go to where it says Pivot Chart Analyze, then go over to where it says Field Buttons, and then select where it says Hide All to make it look more clean. Now, just for fun, let's go add another chart. So we'll click inside our pivot table, go up to where it says Insert, Pivot Chart, and let's go down to where it says Pie Chart, and let's go with the often maligned donut graph. Why? Because it looks cool. So we'll move it over here, and we'll hide our buttons one more time. And by now, you can pretty much see where this is going. What we're starting to do now is build the foundations of a dashboard. And in case you don't know, a dashboard is really just a collection of charts, your pivot table, and you throw in some slicers for good measure. And adding those slicers will allow you to interact with your data a lot more. So we'll click Insert Slicer, and let's choose our customer source. Now, when we start clicking, you'll see some really cool things starting to happen. From here, it's just a matter of arranging our charts to the way we want to see them. And just as a bonus, we can go up and click where it says View and uncheck where it says Grid Lines. And that'll give us a white background to work with. And we'll draw the line here. Let's start to conclude this entire lesson by ending where we began. If you happen to remember earlier, we mentioned that there are a whole bunch of ways to create pivot tables and various schools of thought to back up the preferred method. So one method to create your pivot table is to click inside your list, then go up and click where it says Insert and choose Pivot Table, and that method is perfectly valid. Another school of thought says you should use the recommended pivot table. That's valid as well. And then another school of thought says that you should create a table first. So it goes something like this. You click in your list, then click Insert Table, click OK, and then once you create the table, you then click the button where it says Summarize with Pivot Table. Some people like this method, some people do not. Each of the three methods we covered have their own pros and cons. That said, you probably have to give the slight edge to creating a table first, then building a pivot table. People say why? It's simply the adaptability. When you add in new data to the table, it will reflect on the pivot table when you refresh the data. Bottom line, it just creates more convenience in the long run. Just some real quick closing thoughts as we wrap up this lesson. Yes, I will fully agree. This was literally a crash course on how to build pivot tables. It was incredibly high level and incredibly superficial. The goal with this session was just to build a foundational understanding of what a pivot table is. That said, and please pardon the cheap plug, we're going to be offering a free course that does a deep dive into pivot tables. It's going to be over 2 hours long and will cover a whole host of topics. So please feel free to stay tuned for that. Else, we will see you in the next lesson. Okay, and welcome to the module Introduction to Financial Modeling. So from the get-go, I want to take a moment and acknowledge the fact that financial modeling is a very deep and broad field of study. It is multi-channeled and multifaceted, and people can literally make a career out of it. So the goal here is to create a baseline of familiarity and prepare you in the event you may want to move down this path. And the formulas that we're going to cover represent the most common across all those various fields of study. Let's answer the question, what is financial modeling? Simply put, it's when you look at a company's historical past and try to make forecasts into its future. And yes, as we said, there is a wide variety of modeling types. And just to reiterate, we'll look at the most common functions across all those various fields of study, and that's going to include the following. We'll look at payment calculations, compound interest, present value, future value, net present value, internal rate of return, and a few others along the way. All right, time to get started. When you take out a loan, it goes without saying that you want to know how much the monthly payment is going to be. And Excel can help you with that by using something called the payment function. Let's take a look. In this case, we want to buy some new equipment, and we have to take out a loan for $150,000. The term of the loan is going to be for 10 years, and the interest rate is going to be 7%. So the question is, what is our monthly payment? So let's go up here and click on our FX icon, do a search for the payment, type in PMT, and overall, working with the payment function is pretty straightforward. Just a few quirky things which really aren't that bad. We'll start by clicking our rate, and then what we have to do is divide it by 12 to tell Excel it's an annual rate. Next, we'll click down where it says NPER. NPER is the number of payments. The only wrinkle here is we have to tell Excel the total amount of payments we're going to be making. If we break it down, we make 12 payments per year, and since it's a 10-year loan, we have to multiply 10 by 12 to get the total amount of payments. And with the NPER, we have a couple choices. We could type out 10 times 12, we could type out 120, or we could click the cell with our term and multiply that by 12, of which I'll do. So I'll click the cell here, multiply that by 12. And then for PV, let's go up and click on our loan amount. Click OK. Excel will work its magic. So it turns out we are going to owe approximately $1,700 per month for this loan. And right there is your payment function. Okay, next up is compound interest. So what exactly is compound interest? Simply put, with compound interest, you keep paying on the amount you owe, not just the base loan amount. Any interest that you owe gets calculated into the next payment. And the part that really stinks is there is no built-in function that Excel can offer us. We have to use a very specific formula and type it out longhand. So let's look at the formula first, then we'll plug in some numbers. You can see the formula right here on your screen. And as a side note, this formula is widely used in most business schools. So the formula goes like this. The amount you're going to owe is equal to the principal amount multiplied by 1 plus the rate raised to the nth power. Yeah, not fun. So let's see our example, and then we'll type out the formula. What we want to do is take out a loan of $100,000. Our interest rate is going to be 5%, and the term of the loan is going to be 10 years. Let's type out our formula to find out how much we're going to owe. Type equal, we'll click on our principal amount, multiply that, do an open parentheses, type 1 plus, click on our interest rate, close this parentheses, do a caret symbol to raise that to the n, which is the 10-year term. We'll click on that, press enter, and in 10 years, that is how much we're going to owe. And right there is your compound interest. Okay, let's continue on and start to explore the concept of the time value of money. In a very watered-down definition, the time value of money is this. As time progresses, money will be worth less in the future. So now that we have that under our belt, in this lesson, we'll take a look at 3 very common functions, which are present value, future value, and NPER. And we'll start off with future value. So what exactly is future value? Well, it tells you how much money you will have if you invest X amount over X years at a given interest rate. So for example, if we invest $100,000 today and we get 10% over 10 years, how much is that going to be worth in the future? Let's use the future value function to solve this. We'll go up, click on the FX icon, do a search for FV, and then from here, it's pretty much fill in the blanks with a slight twist. The rate is going to be this cell right here. The NPER is going to be our term, so we'll click on that cell. Now where it says PMT, what Excel wants to know is, are we going to be putting in any additional payments? In this case, we're going to type in 0 because we're not going to do any. And then for present value, or PV, since this is money out of our pocket, we have to put it in as a negative value. So we'll type a negative, then click on our amount, click OK, and right there we go. After 10 years, here's how much we can expect to have. Moving on, let's talk about present value. With present value, it tells you how much money you have to invest in today's dollars if you want to reach a particular financial goal in the future. By way of example, let's say we want to make $100,000. We can get 10% on our money, and the time frame we have to work with is 5 years. The question is, how much money do we have to put down today to reach that goal in the future? The present value function will show us that amount. Start by clicking our FX icon, do a search for PV, and now where it says rate, we'll click this cell right here. Where it says NPER, we'll click this cell right here. Now where it says PMT or payment, what Excel wants to know is if we are going to be putting in any additional money. In this case, we're not, so we'll type a 0. And then where it says future value, we'll click right here because that's our goal. Click OK. And that is how much we have to put down if we want to reach that goal given these parameters. And right there is your present value. Moving right along, let's take a look at NPER. NPER stands for number of periods, and it can be used to tell you how long it will take to reach an investment goal or how long it will take you to pay off a loan. In this case, let's say we want to reach a particular goal. Taking a quick look at our data, What we want to do is invest $10,000. Our goal is $15,000. We can get 5% on our money, and we want to know how long it's going to take. So we'll go up and click on our FX icon, do a search for NPER, and now where it says rate, we'll click right here. Where it says PMT or payment, we are not going to put in any more money, so we'll type a 0. For the PV or present value, this is money out of our pocket, so we'll type a negative first, then click on the investment amount. And for FV or future value, that's how much we want to get in the future. So we'll click this cell right here, then click OK. And right there is the NPER. Rough cutting the numbers, it looks like it will take 8 years to reach our objective. And that will wrap up our quick introduction to the PV, FV, and NPER functions, and we'll see you in the next one. Okay, let's take some time and look at the NPV, or net present value. So from the get-go, please recognize I'm going to offer an overly simplified, arguably watered-down definition of NPV. Why? In real life, NPV can get very muddied, it can get very murky, so the goal here is just to boil it down into its purest essence. So before we get too immersed in NPV, it makes more sense if we ask, why do we want to use it in the first place? On a very fundamental level, with NPV, we want to know if we invest money that generates income over a given time frame at an expected rate of return, is it even worth it? The way we figure that out is we have to calculate the present value for the future value of all our cash flows using our expected rate of return. Put another way, we have to look at our expected total return in today's money to see if it's even worth it in the first place. Really what we're doing is we're going to convert future money into present day money for comparison purposes. And when it's all said and done, if the NPV is greater than 0, it might be worth doing it. Let's see an example to clarify this. Let's say we have $10,000 to invest. We can dedicate 5 years to it. And with this investment, we are expecting to get $3,500 a year in income at a discount rate of 10%. So the question is it even worth our while in the first place? This is where Excel's NPV function will come into play, because what it will do is figure out the present values for our time frame, add those numbers up, and tell us what this investment will be worth in 5 years. Let's get a little more granular here. When we ask Excel to calculate the NPV, it will look at our projected income for each year. It will then calculate the present value for those individual years, add them up, and then give us the total of all those present values. Put another way, it will figure out the present value for year 1, it will figure out the present value for year 2, it will figure out the present value for year 3, etc., add up all those results, and show them to us. So the net in net present value means the total of all the present values you asked Excel to calculate. In this case, it will be 5. Ugh, good grief, that's a headache in a suitcase. Let's get this done. So to calculate the NPV, let's go up and click the FX icon, do a search for NPV. Where it says rate, we'll click on our discount rate, and where it says value 1, we'll select our estimated cash flows for those years. Click OK, and it looks like we get a result of roughly $13,000. So what Excel is telling us, based off all the numbers that we provided, is that the investment is worth $13,000 in today's money. But we're not done yet because we have not calculated the official NPV. To do that, we have to subtract out the initial investment of $10,000. So we'll do that. And it looks like the official NPV is roughly $3,000. So the whole point of calculating our NPV is to determine if the investment is even worth it in the first place. And the way we do that is to translate all of our future cash flows into today's equivalent. And once all of our calculations are done, the biggest question is the NPV greater than 0? If the NPV is greater than 0, it might be worth investing. If the NPV is less than 0, it's a bad investment and you don't want to do it. And mercifully, that will wrap up the NPV, and we'll see you in the next one. Okay, let's switch gears and talk about IRR. IRR stands for Internal Rate of Return. And before we get into things, just know that the IRR is closely related to the NPV, so make sure you understand the NPV before watching this segment. To get your mind around the IRR, it's best to start off by looking at an example. Let's say we can invest $10,000 and generate $3,500 a year over the next 5 years. And we don't know the rate of return. Rather, the only thing we know is what we're going to get, which is the cash flow. So we can use the IRR to figure out that rate of return. So we'll go up, click on our FX icon, do a search for IRR, and here it's very easy. All we have to do is just select the numbers, and we get this percentage. This is where the NPV comes into play. With this rate, it tells you the NPV is 0. You get nothing, you gain nothing, and you lose nothing. Here's how the IRR works on a conceptual level. The main question with the IRR is what makes the NPV 0. And the other thing to note is that the IRR is a variable, which leads to an even more obvious and logical question, which is why would you even bother to do this in the first place? The main idea backing this is that the IRR is ultimately used in making decisions. Going one step further, in business, you generally have the opportunity to invest in different things. So when you compare opportunities, the higher IRR is often the best bet. So by way of example, let's say here at the company, we're considering 2 new product lines. One works out to have an IRR of 22%. The other one works out to have an IRR of 25%. If we compare the two, it looks like the one with a 25% would be the better bet. So that would probably be the best one to invest in. And we'll draw the line right here because the IRR can get pretty intense, and we encourage you to research it further on your own. Else, we'll see you in the next lesson. So let's wrap up this module on financial modeling by looking at a common function used in business, which is the aggregate function. In layman's terms, aggregate means you're going to do calculations on a bunch of numbers, which results in a single answer. Now, if we shift our focus to Excel's aggregate function, there's a lot the function can do, but we'll look at it from a very high level. The reason we say this is because when you start to use Excel's aggregate function, it allows you to get access or tap into 19 other functions or sub-functions, if you will. So you can kind of make the case it's like a 19 for 1. Yikes. So for those reasons alone, let's keep it very simple. Another big box office draw with the aggregate function is it allows you to ignore hidden rows, you can ignore errors in your cells, and you can also filter records, which is really cool. So let's see this in action. Here we have our customer sources. Here we have our sales. Also take note that we have an error in our data, and I'll turn the filter on for demo purposes. To get us started, let's try and take a standard average and see what we get. So we'll type out equal, average, open parentheses, select our range, and it should come back and yell at us because of the error message. There we go. That looks about right. And now let's take the aggregate function for a test drive. Believe it or not, it's actually easier to type out the function because Excel will walk you through step by step, prompting you along the way for the information it needs. Here we go. We'll type out equal, aggregate, open parentheses. And the first thing Excel wants to know is what type of calculation we want to do. In this case, we'll choose average. And here we have a choice. We could either double click on the average or type the number 1 because it corresponds with the average calculation and type a comma. I'll choose to double click just because it's easier and follow that with a comma. Next, Excel is going to ask you what type of things you want to ignore. Now, clearly in real life, you'll need to take a moment and read this list. Here, we'll go with the option of 3 because choosing 3 will allow us to ignore hidden rows, error values, nested subtotals, and all that other fun stuff. Type a comma. And last thing we have to do is select our chunk of cells, of which we'll do, then press enter, and oh my gosh, right there it is. And just for fun, let's do a little filtering so you can see that in action. All right, and that will do it for the overview of the aggregate function. As mentioned earlier, we recommend that you take the time to study the various combinations and permutations that you can do with the aggregate function. That said, that brings us to the conclusion of this module, and we'll see you next time. Okay, in this module, we will take a look at charting. So what exactly is charting? Well, as you can surely surmise, it's simply when you take your data and you convert it into a graph. And the reason you make that graph is because it makes the data easier to read and interpret. In this module, we'll take a look at some of the more popular charts that are being used, and that will include the category or column graph, line graphs, the pie chart, tree maps, combo charts, and a few bonuses along the way. Let's start off with a bar graph. Here we have our data, and it's essentially our country here, our sales here, and what we want to do is create a graph based off this data, obviously. So let's start by selecting our data, and then go up and click where it says Insert, and over here where it says Chart. And quite predictably, Microsoft has given us a whole host of ways to create charts. Let's go over here and click on this arrow, which will launch this dialog box. And this dialog box has two options. It'll give us some recommended charts. And then over here where it says Alt Charts, we want to click on this just to give you an idea of the wide variety of charts available here in Excel. That said, let's go with our default column graph. In case it helps, column graphs are used for comparison purposes. In a nutshell, they summarize your data into this nifty little chart. After the chart has been created, the next step that most people do is format the chart. Now, as a qualifier, please recognize that you can spend literally hours with chart formatting. Chart formatting can be very nuanced, very detailed, and very deep, and we're going to keep things very superficial and focus on the big picture and show the more commonly used items. Let's start by learning how to switch our data. If we don't like the way the chart appears, we can go up and click on this icon right here where it says Switch Data. And when we do that, it's very intuitive. You can just click and see what happens with the data that's being graphed. Moving on, if you want to change the design of the chart, you can hover on these icons right here to change the style. You can also change the colors by clicking on the drop arrow right here. And over here where it says Add Chart Element, you have a ton of choices to explore. Your best bet here is to hover over the option that you want. You'll see it reflected on the chart. And then if you like it, you can choose it. Some common options that people display are the axis title on the horizontal and the vertical. So let's take a moment and do that. And while we're here, we can change these axis titles by clicking on them and typing in the label that we want to see. And we could do the same thing with the chart title if we choose. But instead, let's take a look at a cool trick we can do, which is to create a linked chart title. The way we do that is first click on the chart title, then go up to the formula bar and type in $. And then we'll go over here and click this text to use as the chart title. Press enter, and there we go. Now, if this text would change in the cell, it will be reflected on the chart itself. That's pretty cool. Moving on, let's start to explore chart formatting. Now here is where the fun starts. You're going to recognize real quick that chart formatting can get pretty intense. It's not difficult, there's just a lot of things that you can do. We can get to our chart formatting by doing a right click on the chart, then go down here where it says Format Chart Area. A pane will open up on the right-hand side. And now from here is where you can go ballistic. This is where all the many formatting options live. For example, you can apply shading, gradients, 3D formatting. A lot of PowerPoint-esque type of features are available here. Now the key to all this is to recognize that what you want to do is click on whatever chart element you want to work with first. And that's vital. Let's repeat that one more time. What you want to do is click on the piece of your chart you want to format first, then go over here into the formatting area and make your changes. So for example, let's say we want to remove the decimals that are being displayed over here. What we do is click on the axis first, then go over here to the axis options, and we want to find where it says decimal, change that to 0. You'll see it reflected on the chart, and there we go. Another example is you might want to change the individual bar color. So what you want to do is first click the bar itself, then go over here into the formatting area, look for the paint bucket, change the color, and then from here, it's just a matter of doing a rinse and repeat. And we'll stop right here for the sake of sanity because it just gets flat out ridiculous. So if you're a formatting person, have fun, go nuts. In this module, we'll take some time to study how to create the various other chart types that were mentioned earlier. We'll start off with a line graph. Line graphs are used to show trends over time and often have a date component within them. If we go over here and take a quick peek at our data, you notice we have our years right here, our countries going across this way, and what we want to do is create a line graph based off them. So we'll select them and then go up and click where it says Insert Chart. And then we'll go over here to the line option. Now the key here is when you click on the drop arrow, you're going to see various types of line graphs available to you. I'd suggest you let your mouse hover over these various types just to see how Excel is going to present your data to you because it could impact you in the way you want your data to be displayed. In this case, I'll go with this option right here. And from this point, it picks up from the previous module in which we showed you how to do chart formatting. And for the sake of time, we'll forego that, assuming that you have watched the previous module. Moving on, let's talk about the often maligned pie graph. The idea behind the pie chart is it shows your data in proportions. Oftentimes, pie charts have percentages displayed, so we want to make sure we show you how to do that as well. If you want to create the pie chart, just recognize pie charts are based off of totals. So what we want to do is select our countries here, then hold our control key down and select our total sale amounts. Then go up and click where it says Insert Chart, and we'll choose this icon right here to create the pie chart. And now let's show you how to display the percentages. To do this, we'll go over here where it says Add Chart Element and choose Outside End. We'll see some numbers being displayed, but that's okay. We can change that. The way we can change that is to do a right click, then Format Data Labels. And then over here on the right-hand side, we want to look for the label options. And then from here, all we have to do is uncheck value and show the percentage instead. And there we go. And that'll do it for the pie chart. Next, let's talk about how to create a tree map. Now, ironically, a tree map looks nothing like a tree. Rather what it is, it's a bunch of rectangles. The idea behind the tree map is the larger the rectangle, the larger the data set. So to make the tree map, let's select our countries, hold our control key down, select our sales totals, go up and click where it says Insert Chart, then choose the tree map icon, which is right here. And right there's your tree map. And again, going with our theme, once the chart has been created, it's just a matter of changing the formats. Moving on, let's talk about how to create a combo chart. A combo chart is just like it sounds. It's different chart types blended into one single chart. Best understood by way of example. Go up here and select all of our data, and then click this icon right here. Go over to where it says All Charts. Down at the bottom, it'll say Combo. And here is where you can create your different combinations. Granted, you may have to click on some drop arrows to get the type of chart that you want, but overall, it's not too bad. In our case, it looks like we had to change the chart type to a clustered. And then over here where it says total sales, what we'll do is switch that to a line graph, and we can include a secondary axis if we want. Once we're satisfied with the appearance, we can click OK, and right there is your combo chart. In this module, we'll take a look at how to create sparklines. So what exactly are sparklines? Sparklines are little mini graphs that you can place within a cell. Let's start off by clicking here, and then go up and click where it says Insert, Sparkline. Now we have three choices. We'll go with this one right here. From here, it's just a matter of selecting our range. We'll copy our rows down. And then once the sparklines have been created, it's really a matter of just playing with the options. We can change the style, the type, etc. So feel free to toy around with that. And we'll move on. And let's conclude this module by taking a look at other ways to create charts. One way we can create a chart is to select our data and then press our F11 key. When we do that, it'll create a brand new chart. The key here to notice is that it will put it on a brand new sheet. So that's one option for you. And the other way to create a chart is to select your data and then press Alt F1. And as you can see, instant chart. From here, you can modify things by playing with the formatting that we've been looking at throughout this entire module. Or if you want to change the chart type itself, you can right click on the chart, go down to where it says Change Chart Type, and then you'll see a whole list of charts that you can choose. And that'll do it for this module. Okay, in this module, we'll take a look at how to do printing in Excel. And granted, even though it's printing, sometimes printing in Excel is not as straightforward as it is in, say, Microsoft Word. We might have to jump through a couple hoops to get things to be the way we want. The key to understanding printing in Excel is to recognize it's a bunch of moving parts. It's just a bunch of combinations that you go through to try to make everything fit the way you want it to. So let's say we have this list of data here, and what we want to do is print it. If we go over and click File Print, we'll get an idea of what it's going to look like before we print it. We can scroll up and down. Now, obviously, we have some problems of which we'll fix. For right now, we'll pretend everything is cooperating just to walk through some general options. Starting over here, we can click the Print button to print everything out. Where it says Settings, we could either print the active sheet or the entire workbook if we choose. We can change the orientation from portrait to landscape if we wish. We can change the letter size as well. We can also modify our margins if we want to. And that will get us through an overview of the general settings. Now, let's tackle the problem of fixing our spreadsheet so it looks good. We'll start by clicking the back button up here. Now, granted, there are a whole bunch of ways to fix printing issues in Excel. The one I would personally advocate for is to use something called the page break preview. And you can get to that by clicking on the View tab, then clicking where it says Page Break Preview. All that's happening here is Excel is giving you a high level or an aerial perspective of how your spreadsheet looks. The key is to pay attention to where these blue lines are because they allow you to adjust where the page break occurs. And you can make that adjustment by hovering over the blue line, then do a click and drag. And the goal is to move these blue lines around until everything fits the way you want. Granted, it's not the best, but it's an option for you to try. Since we're here, another option you can try is to force a page break. The way you do that is you click on Page Layout, then Page Break, and you can see the new page break right here. The other option you might want to try is this scaling option right here. The scaling option will enlarge or reduce the size of your printout. Best understood by way of demonstration, if I shrink the scale down real small and then do a print preview, you'll see what happens. So the idea here is you can toy around with the numbers either by increasing them or decreasing them just to see how it fits on your page. Moving on, even though we alluded to this earlier, if we want to change our margins, we can click on this icon right here, then go down to where it says Custom Margin, and we can type in some numbers to try to buy ourselves some more real estate on the page if we wish. To get out of Page Break Preview, click View, then Normal, and then somewhere through all that, hopefully you'll get the best combination that works for you. You can then print your spreadsheet and everything's all good. Moving on, let's talk about rows to repeat at top. So what this feature does is when we print out our spreadsheet, it will put our labels at the top of every page. So therefore, when people read it, it makes it a lot easier. To do this, we'll go up and click where it says Page Layout, then click the arrow icon. We'll then jump over to the Sheet tab. We'll click down where it says Rows to repeat at top. Then we'll go over here, click on row 1 because that has our column headers on it. Click OK. Now, when we do a print preview, as we scroll down, you'll notice that our column headings are at the top of every page. From here, we could click Print, or we could create a PDF file, and there's a couple ways we can do that. Option 1 would be to print it as a PDF, or we could go over here to where it says Export, Create PDF. Feel free to use whatever option you want. And let's start to conclude this module by talking about something called the print area. Oftentimes, you don't want to print the entire sheet, just a portion of it. So what happens is you set the print area, and when you go to print, that's all you get. Let's see an example. Let's say this area right here, for whatever reason, is what we want to see every time we print. After we select our cells, we'll go up here and click on the Page Layout tab, then choose Print Area, Set Print Area. Now, if we do a print preview, you'll see what we get, and every time we print, that's all that we get. If we want to remove the print area, go back to the Page Layout tab, choose Print Area, Clear Print Area, and you're right back to normal. And that'll wrap up this module on basic printing.